right, well, welcome on in to another episode of Oh So Curious. Well, actually, today is DCU Daily, but as you know, we are on, of course, the Oh So Curious channel. I am your host, Daniel. We've mixed things up, as always, with the news, and we'll get into the quick hits as well as we do. We have a lot of news to get into today. There was some breaking news just now that the legendary boxer George Foreman has passed away, so we will start things off with that. John will join us. We have to talk a lot about DC. The Lantern Show continues to add more cast members. Now we not only have the mama of the Lantern, but also the daddy. So we have to, talk about that. Of course, they got not just one, but two actors to play the daddy. So, and trust me, this is not gonna become, an episode of Jerry Springer. I don't think that's where they're going with this. We also have to talk about a lot of casting news. Will Ferrell joins a new project. We've got some news about American Dad, that potentially getting renewed. Severance airing its finale today, and that I believe is also getting renewed soon. Only Murders in the Building has added some more cast members for its upcoming season. Of course, beyond that, we have to dive into some Marvel news. Tom Hiddleston's Loki might have a bigger role in Avengers Doomsday than maybe we realize, but we'll talk about it. We'll get into it and lots more. Today it's going to be John and myself. So to do that and so much more, as always, let's hit that news intro and get the show started.
It doesn't seem to matter what I do. I'm always number two.
All right, Mr. I need to paint my abs on to get nominated. You don't see Robert Downey doing that.
You're kidding.
You're
kidding. I can't open the envelope without the...
Warner Brothers is heading back into the Matrix with a new movie in the works.
Wonder what other surprises are in store.
I want to be Bruce Wayne. I like that. You're gonna love me.
There's the shot right there. That.
Okay, we don't need to see chords.
Right there.
You look ridiculous.
Well, not no more, he don't.
What, dude? I can barely understand you. Your accent's insane.
What the world needs now.
Give me a hand up. Nope, I'm actually okay. Thank you very much. Oh, wow. Wow.
All right, well, time to get into the show, shall we? We're switching sides. Hi, John. We'll just bring you in. You're muted, by the way.
Hi. No, I was muted on purpose. I was getting some food out. I have a brownie, ladies and gents. I'm very hungry and
making me jealous already. That's great.
Yeah, I had a cookie before, but I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna have the brownie too because fuck it, why not?
I just have a
hello.
Slim Jim.
I'm here. Never do a Slim Jim. Anyway,
not sponsored, but just
not sponsored by Jersey Mike's or Slim Jim. Not yet, at least. But hello.
One day. But hey, yeah. It's a busy day in the world of Hollywood. Movies, TV shows. I mean, Severance airing its season finale today. We already have some news about the next season. I mean, it's been going on for a few months now, actually. So
I don't know why, but I keep thinking that Severance has just been like the season premiere just happened like 2 weeks ago. I don't know why. I'm just in that perpetual like, damn, no, it's been here for damn. And the fucking season finale of Reacher is like next week, or this week, or no, that next week. Yeah, crazy. Fucking time, man. It sucks.
Yeah, it's just a good time to be a fan of TV because we have got The Last of Us coming soon. Daredevil's on right now. Reacher's on right now. I'm probably forgetting a bunch of shows that are also around that you can check out. I mean, I have to catch up on half of those things. I haven't even started Reacher yet, but I am watching Severance, and I'm gonna watch the finale tonight. So do not spoil it for me, guys. I haven't gotten to it yet.
They all
a
died.
couple of people I know did. But I wanted to dive into the spoilery details, but that was only if I had the chance to watch the finale, but I haven't gone to it yet, so I'll be doing that after the show. But in the meantime, we do have to start with some rather somber news, John. This came up literally minutes ago as we were getting ready to go live. As it turns out, George Foreman, the legendary heavyweight champion, has passed away at the age of 76. He claimed a world title in his 20s and then again in his 40s. He had lasting power, and of course, a lot of us might just remember him, as the man who sold us our favorite grill from when we were living in a dorm in college, the Foreman grill. I know a bunch of people who used to have that back in their college days. But of course, he was
Yeah.
much more than that. He
I had
as a
one.
person, he was a great. He broke barriers, and he definitely, made a name for himself. And his name, and his legacy will certainly outlive him. And I'm glad that I was around at a time when he was still doing his thing. Some of his stuff was well before my time, obviously, but I mean, hey, look, he defined an era of boxing that I don't know we will ever quite get to live again. Evander Holyfield, Dwight Muhammad Kawhi, Joe Frazier, like he was maybe one of the last few of that era, like one of the icons of that era of boxing still around. Um, what are your thoughts on just George Foreman and who he was as a person, the impact that he made on just pop culture in general? Because obviously we are a movie and TV show channel, right? But George Foreman, like, even though he was not necessarily an entertainer by nature, he was very entertaining because of everything that he did, whether he was as a boxer, all the George Foreman commercials. He had some acting, roles and cameos over the years.
Naming all of his son George.
But what are your thoughts on the impact and the lasting legacy of George Foreman as we now have learned that he's passed away at the age of 76?
Yeah, it's it's sad to see. Like, here's the thing: even when, like, I'm not gonna act like, whenever someone who's left like such a pop culture imprint on the zeitgeist, I have to be like, there's a respectability there. I'm not going to act like I was a boxing fan. I'm not. The extent I go is I like the Rocky movies. That's like that's as far as I go in terms of. But I know, George Foreman, Mike Tyson, Muhammad Ali. I know, like, the big guys and all that shit. So there's like the sadness of like, wow, such a powerful American legend has left this mortal coil. I'm not gonna act like I'm like, oh my god, I was the biggest George Foreman fan, like a lot of people tend to do, and like romanticizing death and all that. Like, oh my god, I was the biggest Prince fan. Like, I don't try to do that, but it's still like there's a bit of sadness. It's like this guy who did like so much, like quite literally fought metaphorically and physically a lot of stuff throughout his lifetime, and there's just it's sad to see, but it's like, it's a part of life, and we're all going to experience that someday. A little dark, I apologize, but it's putting it into perspective a little bit. But it's sad to see such a legend leave us, but gotta, I guess you could say, for lack of a better word, roll with the punches and kind of address the greatness that was, and hopefully move on from that.
Yeah, I mean, and he leaves behind a legacy that will last, quite frankly, forever. Because yeah, from the heights of his boxing career to all the cameos and various acting appearances that he made over the years, and of course the businessman that he was with the Foreman Grill and the many other products. It's a multi-million-dollar business that he leaves behind. George Foreman will forever be a name that we remember, and not only in the world of sports but also in the world of entertainment, just in the world in general. So from all of us here, our best wishes and condolences to George Foreman's friends and family, and we hope that that there's brighter days ahead. But he leaves a legacy behind that will never be forgotten. Now, on a less dour note, or slightly less dour note, John, I suppose, we have to talk about MGM Amazon, or Amazon MGM rather.
No, it's still a dour note. It's probably worse.
So Amazon MGM, they have initiated. They haven't completed the transaction to basically take over creative control of the James Bond franchise from the Broccoli family. Now, the Broccoli family, agreed with the Amazon MGM to do this. They're getting paid $1 billion in the process, which is quite a bit of money, and I think a lot more money than they probably even thought they would ever get, to part from. I mean, and look, they're gonna still be profit participants in all the James Bond properties because they're still owners. They just don't have creative control. To give up just creative control for $1 billion, I mean, you know what? Good on you, Broccoli's. If you guys were feeling you're getting up there in age and you don't want to be doing this anymore, power to you for getting $1 billion to walk away from the creative control. But obviously the question has been, where do we go from here? What does Amazon MGM do now? We were talking about like, hey, why don't you just, wait for Christopher Nolan to free up and give him carte blanche, tell him like, you do what you want, Chris. Nolan, this is all yours. Or like have any of the other many talents that Amazon MGM has under their belt work on it. Somebody in-house. Do they need a Kevin Feige for the James Bond franchise? How do you deal with this moving forward? Do you bring in a producer that is just in charge of the franchise, that lays out the creative editorial plan for what's to come moving forward? Now, finally, it looks like we have some names that are circling around the idea of taking over the creative leadership of the James Bond franchise. And there are two names you may have already heard before because they've been involved in a lot of other, large scale IPs, including actually James Bond himself in a more indirect way in the past. And these are the two names. Amy Pascal and David Heyman are now eyed to run the James Bond franchise for MGM or Amazon MGM Studios. This comes to us from Variety, but also we have seen these reports in many other outlets. So how they describe it is basically this. Now, before we get into the details, I wanted to kind of go over the background of Amy Pascal and David Heyman as well, because they're in talks, quote unquote, to potentially take over the leadership, the creative leadership behind the franchise from what was essentially the Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson before. Now, Amy Pascal, who used to be the head of Sony, while she was there, she oversaw the Spider-Man franchise. She was the one who was in charge when Spider-Man joined the MCU. And of course, since then, she's been working on movies like Challengers, Little Woman. She's become one of the more prolific producers in Hollywood right now. And also, when she was at Sony, that was at a time when Sony was distributing James Bond movies, including the most successful, the highest grossing James Bond movie of all time, Skyfall. That was overseen by Sony Pascal. That 007 movie made $1 billion. That's more than any other 007 movie has made before or since. Now, David Heyman might be a little less familiar because for those of us who aren't big MCU fans, you might not have heard of his name, but he was one of the big producers who helped shepherd the Harry Potter films at Warner Brothers. And then later on, the slightly less beloved, but still part of the Wizarding World, the Fantastic Beast spin-off series. He's also produced the Gravity movie. And of course, he's worked on the Paddington film. So, which I will come back around to a little bit later because I found this really hilarious comment on one of the trade websites today referencing the Paddington situation. But John, knowing the resumes that Amy Pascal and David Heyman have, do you think they would be the right fit? Do you even think this is the right approach to have two people come in, like these two prolific producers, take over the creative leadership and basically guide the 007 franchise forward?
In regards to one of those names, I will just say this. Stop. He's already dead. You don't have to bring Amy Pascal in to fucking kill him further. Our boy James Bond is already dead. Now that his creative control is in the arms of Blofeld himself, you don't need to bring in the bitch who wanted to make an Aunt May spin-off movie when she was in charge of the goddamn Spider-Man franchise. David Heyman, okay, I'll see what he can do. But Amy Pascal, I don't wish death upon anybody, but like, can Amy Pascal just be hit by a truck and just be put into like a vegetative state just for like a couple of years, just to like, just like keep like until like retirement age and just kind of leave her be. And then she'll pop up and she'll be like, okay, no brain damage, nothing like that. Just, to kind of like put her off a little bit. That's all I ask, because can this bitch just fucking leave us alone? Like, we've seen her, what she's done with another big franchise, and it sucked. And she made every terrible decision. Can we not have that for James Bond? It's like, maybe there was like the slightest bit of hope that maybe we would get like one good James Bond movie every like 10 years. Just like kind of how it is for Marvel at this point. But like, now it's just like, if you get Amy Pascal, there's no hope. It's like, actually, like, I was being maybe hyperbolic before, oh, James Bond is dead. It's dead. It's dead. This would actually, putting it in her hands is like actually killing this franchise. Like it's actually, this character is done from like a media of movies and television perspective. He's done. It's done. We're gone. This character, he's dead. Stick to video games, comics, and books, because that's all we got now. Because no fucking way, if you put this motherfucker in charge of this character and in this franchise, will we ever get anything good ever again? I don't care. Oh, she did Skyfall. That was like a happy accident. That was like, she didn't do shit. She was just the person that was in charge at that point. It wasn't like, oh, hey, no. Just no. Please no. I don't want this. But, you know, we have like over 60 years of history with this character. So, yeah, we got a lot of great movies, but we won't be getting any great movies ever again. So, yeah, well, let's go back to the past and just cry as we drink our martinis shaken, not stirred, while we watch Sean Connery and Roger Moore and Pierce Brosnan and George Lazenby and Timothy Dalton, because that's all we got now. That's all we got. That's all she wrote.
I, for one, don't feel as pessimistic about this, because despite everything you just said, I think Amy Pascal has a record of, you know, creating and shepherding good movies. And not, yes, she hasn't done everything right, and most producers of her experience level haven't, right? David Heyman also has a pretty impressive track record with the Harry Potter franchise that has grossed billions of dollars, including, even though they weren't as like the Fantastic Beasts movies. And of course, he's worked on Paddington, which brings me to what was the best comment I've seen so far on the internet today. Gasp! Paddington is going to be the new 007. Bear. Paddington Bear. That's gonna be how we introduce, because since David Heyman, of course, was the one who shepherded the Paddington franchise, maybe if he's in charge, then he will give us an animated 007 that is as fluffy as he is smooth. So I can't wait for that, or whichever direction they go. Of course, they're still only in talks, so this doesn't mean they will sign on. Things can break down. They can move on to other, potential options, let's say. John, I think you're muted again, but
I was muted again. But
all right, so let's keep the ball rolling here. Yes,
let's keep it to talks. Just saying.
So, okay, so the next story that I want to bring in was basically, so hey, look, today's Friday, right, when we're doing the show live, if you're watching us live, and of course that means the weekend box office is something we have to discuss, because this weekend you have not only the Auto Knight, starring not one but two Robert De Niro's, but you also have, of course, the Snow White movie finally releasing amid all the controversy that has surrounded the project. It's finally out. It's got a really mixed set of reviews around Tomatoes. I think the score last I checked was still under 50% from the critics. I mean, we don't quite have an audience score yet, but I'm sure we'll get that as we get into the weekend. Having said that, we now know on the opening, basically on the opening day and just a day after the previews on Thursday, where things are tracking. Now, going into the weekend, they were thinking it was going to be somewhere between 45 to 55, probably would land around 50 million. Now, as of right now, as of Friday, it looks like, according to Deadline, Snow White is opening right around Dumbo as a comparison, another live action remake that Disney did, and it's going somewhere in the mid 40s. So I just wanted to quickly read through this. I want to get your opinion on this. Are you surprised by this at all? Because as of Friday midday, Disney's Snow White is seeing $15.5 million today on Friday, which includes last night's, aka Thursday's, 3.5 million. So if you subtract that, around 12 million on Friday, and that, as based on that number, they're projecting, the industry experts are projecting, that is going to land somewhere in the mid 40s on its 3-day opening weekend at the domestic box office. And that puts it right in the same zone as Dumbo, which opened to $46 million, and it was a lot cheaper to make because they spent $170 million on it, and they've spent $270 on Snow White. So wow, that is not what they probably wanted or expected. Or I mean, I don't know if it was a matter of expectation at this point because these projections have been out for a while, but certainly not what Disney would have wanted to see. Now, of course, a lot of this will still depend on if people go to see it on Saturday and Sunday. How good is the word of mouth? Will the female audience go to see it? Because this movie does target a lot of the female audiences. Now, having said that, we have seen movies where sometimes they can overperform depending on if the word of mouth is great, or they can fall off a cliff as the weekend goes on. Speaking of falling off the cliff, on the other end of the spectrum, the $50 million Warner Brothers movie, The Alto Knight, starring not one but two De Niro's, it's opening up to like $1 million, and there's no way it's going to make over $3 million if you go off the projections, which would make it potentially one of the biggest flops of the year already. And we're not even like, 4 months into the year. So and you still have Minecraft coming out soon. You have Thunderbolts on the way. So I do not know how that movie makes any money. Now, having said that, John, I want to get your opinion on this. I want to get your reaction to this. Do you think it's it's expected, or it was expected, that Robert De Niro's The Alto Knights were going to do this badly? And then also, are you surprised by where Snow White is currently sitting?
No, I mean, like when I went to go see a movie earlier today, like I saw like a bunch of kids in the lobby and they were wearing like Snow White outfits and shit like that. So it's like, yeah, it's still like Disney is still on top. They're going to remain culturally relevant for years to come. I don't know if it's going to make a profit, but it's going to make, I think, reasonable money. And it all depends on the second week. Everyone's like, oh, opening. I think the second week, the drop off, that's going to be, what is the drop off percentage going to be? Is it going to be like, oh, it's actually a pretty decent movie and it's going to be okay? Or is it going to be like total crap? So, I mean, I've heard mixed things. It's like some of the things are pretty good, some of the things aren't. I've heard Rachel Zegler's okay. I've heard Gal Gadot still can't act. The CGI is pretty terrible, but it does some interesting things. The songs are okay, but they're like forgettable from what I've heard. I can't judge the movie. I haven't seen it. I don't plan on seeing it. But this isn't surprising at all. This isn't surprising at all because it's family stuff and there's not a lot coming out right now, and and I'm not surprised that
I don't have friends. I got family.
Anyway,
sorry, you said the trigger word.
Alto Knights. I'm not surprised that that's not making any money because they barely fucking marketed the damn thing. Like, I didn't even know it was coming out until like the trailer came out, and they were like, "Oh yeah, this is also a movie," and I haven't seen any advertisements for it whatsoever. But like, yeah, it's just kind of, yeah, like it's just. It sucks because it's like, but I mean, to be fair, it's also negative reviews. Like, two of my friends just saw it today, Alto Knights, and one said it was really good. The other said it was not good at all. So obviously, we'll see. But yeah, not surprising at all. But that's just, I'm just gonna be seeing Alto Knights tomorrow at like 1:30ish. So I'm still excited because I'm still curious about it. It's still got two De Niro's for the price of one. So that's pretty cool.
I guess you could look at it that way as a positive, but still, the movie's not going to make any money. It seems like, well, $1 to $3 million on a $50 million budget is not much. I hope Warner Brothers has a plan to make that up in the post theatrical ancillary markets, whether it's DVD, Blu-ray release, which doesn't bring in much these days, or maybe potentially like distributing to other streaming services and eventually onto cable. So yeah, so I wanted to actually, so John, since you did watch Ash, do you want to talk about it quick? I mean, maybe give us a bit of a preview, because for those of us who want to go see a movie and maybe don't want to see either Alto Knights or Snow White, this seems to be a counter programming move. Where
okay, I mean, I wouldn't have mind waiting, but like I just saw it and everything's still fresh. But like, fuck it, I'll review it. It's fine. Because I mean, I can guarantee it's better than both of those movies. Although I seem to be in the minority with that. But anyway, so Ash is from a rapper called Flying Lotus. No idea who this dude is. I don't listen to rap. Maybe he's extremely talented. I don't know, but this is his feature-length directorial debut because he directed a part of one of the VHS movies. So that's all I know about that. But like, I didn't expect a ton going into this. Like, I saw the trailer, I'm like, oh, this looks really cool. But I just kind of heard a lot of like really mixed reviews for it. Like, oh, it's not that great. It's kind of just eh. My friend saw it. He's like, it was kind of mediocre, and I'm like, all right, but I'm still curious. I still have my ticket. I'm gonna go see it. Um, yeah, okay. Did anybody really fucking give a shit about the Batman Ninja movie? But so I was like, all right, let me see. And I went in and I'm like, I'm gonna have an open mind. If it sucks, it sucks. Oh well. If it's great, then it's great. This is the best movie I've fucking seen all year. Like, I'm not even
Really?
hyperbolic in saying that. Ash is hands down the best movie I have seen all year, and I'm okay to die on that hill. This was an exemplary, beautiful, creepy, eerie, intriguing package all rolled into one. Now, that like Isa Gonzalez, I'm not saying she's like not a good actress. I knew she's a very good actress. She gives her best performance of her career in this movie. The amount of, because there's not it's mainly like just her or just her and one other person, played by Aaron Paul, by the way, who's great in this as well. But she like she's just kind of by herself and just kind of dealing with her own emotions of like the character she's playing and what she's going through and what she's feeling. And because the whole basis is like she wakes up after this, like something happened on this like research vessel on like another planet, like light years from Earth, like it's another galaxy and shit like that. So she wakes up, she has amnesia, she doesn't know who she is, she doesn't know where she is, and it like goes on from there. And it was on a technical scale, absolutely brilliant. Felt very much like an Argento film, like Inferno or Suspiria. Great command of color. Modern audiences will call it the bisexual lighting effect, which whatever. But the command of color, the beautiful cinematography, it's drenched in its own weird, zany style. It draws from so many great directors and writers and their styles, but it still manages to feel fresh and new. Like, it has notes of Argento, as I mentioned, has notes of John Carpenter, very much like The Thing and Prince of Darkness. It has notes of Mario Bava with Planet of the Vampires. It has Lucio Fulci influence, like The Beyond. It's got Patty Chayefsky influence from Altered States. It's got every like weird bonkers thing from the last 50 years put into one movie, and I couldn't help but love it. Even got some body horror Cronenberg stuff in there. And it doesn't spoon feed you information. It doesn't like draw out certain things. There's no filler. There's no like, it's cut dry and to the point, but it also refuses to give you answers until it's nice, good, and ready to do so. The practical effects are amazing, but even then it has a lot of CGI, but like stylistically done. So it looks and feels just like so like for lack of a better term, out of this world. Like it's like he's like, okay, I'm gonna make a movie that feels like it was made in outer space. Suck on that, Tom Cruise. But it just
it
feels
looks like Alien to me.
it definitely Ridley Scott influence. That's another one.
Yeah.
A lot of Prometheus and Alien
Mhm.
Covenant kind of vibes as well. I really like the world. Like it has like a lot of influence from definitely from 70s sci-fi, Silent Running, and Outland being more influences that I see here, where it's like kind of that blue collar tech, futuristic tech, you know, like very Alien, where it's like you can tell that there's like better like technology, but it still feels like very like cheap, but like on purpose. Like this is like, all right, we got to send these people off. We got to give them like kind of the cheapest crap, but it still feels futuristic. Like the set design is great. Like I love the suits they have. Like if you can find another picture of them in this, like yeah, like I love how like it looks like somebody like took apart a vacuum cleaner in a car and just
Like
somehow
maybe
made
a
a
diver
spacesuit
suit
out
as
of it.
well. Like they
Yeah,
have the materials. Yeah.
yeah, like if somebody took apart like a bunch of technologies and strung them together and somehow made a functioning spacesuit out of it. There's there is small notes of like Lovecraftian stuff, not a lot, just like kind of like mainly in the world it has. Like when they like mainly this shot where they look up and they see like this like fucking weird ass atmosphere that they're kind of
It's
in, and
crazy.
I love
It's like if you were standing in maybe like Jupiter or Neptune's atmosphere.
yeah, like it's
Yeah.
the style is just brilliant, but even then, like the story is
Landscapes, man.
intriguing.
Wow.
I was intrigued all the way through. It feels like a slow burn, but it never boring. It's a 90-minute movie, but it doesn't feel like 90 minutes, but in a good way. It's not like,
Mhm.
oh, this is 90 minutes, but it feels like 4 hours. It's 90 minutes, but it feels like a good long 90 minutes. I don't know if that makes sense,
Like
but
it
it's
feels
like
like it's paced well. It's not something that's gonna bore
exactly,
you.
but
Like you're
it's
not
not
gonna
like
feel the
too
time.
quick.
Yeah.
It's not too quick because a lot of people are like, "Oh, it went by so quickly." Sometimes that's not good in a movie. Like oh, it went by like Evil Dead is another great example. That movie is like 80 something minutes long, but the what you go through in that movie is it feels like the longest night in the world because of like the amount of torture these characters go through, but it doesn't feel like you're like, "Oh my god, fucking end already." Um, yeah, it's a sci-fi horror mystery film, and I just loved it. I love the influences it has. I love, but I've seen bits and pieces of it. I haven't seen the whole thing. Like I've caught it like on TV like a bunch of times, but yeah, it's in theaters. I would say go watch it. Now, I might be in the minority with this because I've seen a lot of reviews for it and it's very mixed. Not a lot of people seem to like it, but I feel like this is kind of going to be like the thing where nobody liked it back in 1982, but then it got re-examined like 30 years later. I feel like this is going to be the thing of this generation where not a lot of people like it now. It's not like getting bad reviews or anything. It's just kind of like, oh, it's okay. It's kind of good, but it's not great. But I feel like maybe like 20, 30 years from now, this will get re-examined and be like, wow, this was actually like fucking genius. Cause that's what it feels like. The only bad things is like the ending, I feel goes on a little bit too long. It feels like it's going to end at this point, but then it kind of goes on a little bit longer. And some of the CGI shots look a bit off, but it like kind of works because of the style. But even then they're a bit like they they take you out a little bit. But even then, I thought I was like so shocked with how great this was. This was just so good. I was because I'm like again, I don't want to sound mean because I know Isaac Gonzalez is really talented, but like I was like, oh no, okay, you're talented, but you are fucking talented. Like, wow, I knew you were good, but you had my curiosity. Now you have my attention. Like I knew she was great, but this showed like even further than that. Like like an actor is like really good. Like you see something over and over again. Oh my god, you're great, you're great, you're great. But then they just give a performance where you're like, holy shit, you can still surprise me. And she did a great job here. Aaron Paul, I feel kind of bad for Aaron Paul because he's great in this as well. I mean, Jesse Pinkman, who doesn't love Jesse Pinkman? But like, I feel kind of bad because it's like he gave a great performance, like he always does. But it's just like in terms of her versus him, it's like it's a little unfair because she was so like her command of body language was something that was like the little like mannerism she has, the cadence in her voice, the little things that you normally don't notice in a performance, like at least general audiences don't, that I notice here. Again, I'm a film guy, so of course I notice that kind of thing. But even then, I still feel like general audiences would like still like get that. And she did that so well. Like I was looking at this again, going back to the type of show we're on in terms of DC. A lot of the performance in this movie reminded me of Jessica Cruz in a lot of ways. Again, I'm the fucking Jessica Cruz stan, so of course I noticed them. But like, as we all know, Jessica Cruz is like an agoraphobic who became a Green Lantern. She kind of had this like this scared like sort of like a kind of like an afraid of everything sort of thing, but like by the end she kind of found it within herself to like conquer what needed to be conquered. And I felt like that feels like very Jessica Cruz coded. Now I know that was probably unintentional because nobody fucking cares about Jessica Cruz, but
you never know, maybe season 2 of Lanterns might, or
unlikely, a man can dream. But I would say Isaac Gonzalez, from a performance point of view, like that's something I was thinking about because I'm like, I love that character, and she definitely had those aspects that would, if she were to be cast tomorrow, like, oh, we're casting Jessica Cruz and we have Isaac Gonzalez, I'd be like, okay, perfect casting. I've always wanted Diane Guerrero because I think her performance in Doom Patrol, her performance in Doom Patrol definitely borrows aspects from that as well. And I think she could do a really good job, but I'm like both of them, either one of them, I'm cool with. And you know what, Isaac Gonzalez, give us more of this. I know you're great, but now I have an even higher bar set for you. So give us more amazing stuff.
I mean, look, I personally have thought that always, like, Isaac Gonzalez, look, and here's the thing, Isaac Gonzalez and Adria Arjona look like the same person sometimes. And I've always sort of in my mind had the shorthand just based on their performances and the projects that I've seen them in, that Adria Arjona is the better actor. So I never quite took, it might be because of the projects that each of them has taken on, but then again, both of them have done good stuff and bad stuff. So to me, this is surprising because my perception of Isaac Gonzalez is not as somebody who you would think of as a great actor, but going off what you were saying about
really
this
like
movie,
her in a lot of stuff.
Clearly that's not the case. Maybe it was just, you just need to find the right role.
Yeah, I mean, I really like her in Baby Driver. I thought she did a really good, she played psychotic really well in that movie.
Yeah.
And from what I've seen of her, she's done very good, but like this was like, damn, wow, she really blew me away here. She definitely, I want to say Flying Lotus. Again, it's so weird to say that because I understand it's a rap name. I'm not trying to sound mean. It's a fucking cool name. Like, not gonna lie. Rather than like
it's a better name for a director than most other. I mean, you're gonna remember the name.
Yeah.
That's
but yeah,
sure.
Flying Lotus. I'm gonna look it up real quick.
By the way, the Rotten Tomatoes score is 73%, so the critics are liking it. So a lot more than Snow White. Snow White's sitting at 44%.
Yeah.
I mean, it's I don't know what the Alternate score is right now, but I mean, it's certainly that number is better than what Snow White is doing. The audience score isn't the greatest. I mean, but then again, it's only got like 50 or so ratings, so it's a pretty small sample size comparatively speaking. But like again, like you guys are saying in the chat, could
Johnny
be a
Remler.
So
I don't know who this guy is, but he wrote it, and congrats, bro. You fucking did an amazing job. He's only written, the only thing he's written is Das Quartet, which is a mini series. I guess it's foreign language. I think it's like Swedish or something. But yeah, that's the only other thing he's written. So I hope he has a great career ahead of him. So yeah, him and Flying Lotus. I hope the both of them have a great great careers ahead of them, because in terms of filmmaking, I know Flying Lotus has been part of the game for the past, like, I think he's been a rapper since like the 2000s, I think. So I think whatever they plan to do on a filmmaking front, then please, I want to see more. I saw some really good trailers, actually. There was one that was Dangerous Animals. Jai Courtney plays a serial killer where he feeds women to sharks. I'll fucking watch that movie.
New. Okay.
I'll take it. Like, Jai Courtney, I didn't know you had it in you. And then there was another trailer. I saw that Pedro Pascal thing, the Freaky Tales one. We did a Oh So Curious on that a few weeks ago. I saw that, but then there was another trailer I really, really liked. And I'm like, oh, this looks really cool. But I forgot what it was.
There was a new Rami Malek and Lawrence Fishburne movie coming out that looks
The Amateur. I did see a trailer for that as well. A Hell of a Summer was another one. That looks fun. Like, it's Finn Wolfhard's first movie. So I'm like, okay, I'll watch that.
John, I wanted to ask you, like, just to kind of summarize this review.
Right.
Would you recommend this movie to somebody else? I mean,
absolutely.
Because here's the thing. This looks like it's very rated R. So obviously this might not be everybody's cup of tea. There's horrors. It looks like it's going to be plenty gory and bloody. So yeah, what would you say to somebody who wants to go see a movie, especially if they don't want to go see either the other bigger ones, Alto Nights or
I would say if you have the stomach for it and you don't have epilepsy. If you have epilepsy, don't watch this movie. I was literally, there's like a sequence at the end where there's like a broken light, like strobing, and like two people are fighting, and I'm like, okay, I'm so glad I don't have epilepsy, because somebody would be having a seizure, because, like, goddamn. But, like, so if you have epilepsy, don't watch the movie. If you have a bad stomach, also don't watch the movie. But if you can handle body horror, if you can handle, like, kind of weird, like, strobing effects and stuff like that, I would say by all means go watch it. I really loved it. Aaron Paul and Isaac Gonzalez were great. All the other actors were really good. I think the guy... Hold on, I gotta look it up now. I think the guy from The Raid 2 was in it. Yes, Iko Uwais. I hope I'm pronouncing it.
Iko Uwais. I know
Iko Uwais. Okay,
he's in another movie coming up.
He's great. They did show off his skills a little bit. I'm not gonna, spoil it, but they did show off his fighting skills.
He's been in both Raid movies. He was in both Raid. He was in that Mark Wahlberg Mile 22. He was in the latest Expendables movie. That's where I last saw him.
But
he's like an action
he was good
star.
In this.
Yeah. Well,
he didn't have a huge role, but like they had a little bit of a fight scene with him. So that was real. I'm like, oh, because I was looking at this guy because he was like kind of only seen in flashbacks. I'm like, why does this guy look so familiar? And then during the fight scene, I'm like, oh, he was in The Raid. So it's like the fighting style.
He's an Indonesian action star. Yeah,
yes,
and he's also been in like Snake Eyes. Yeah. Right. Star Wars. The Force Awakens. Not that one. And then he was in a couple other ones. Like I think I saw him in that terrible Skyrim sequel, or Skyline, Beyond Skyline, which was like a Netflix thing anyway. But I'm not surprised that he would be a part of this movie. This is like perfectly up his alley. So but hey guys, let us know what you thought about, or if you haven't had the chance to see it, are you more excited to go see Ash? And if you did see it, what did you think about it? Let us know down in the comments below, and hit that like button while you're at it. Now we're gonna get back to the regular news programming, which includes Jason Bourne. Everybody, is a franchise that, of course, you guys are probably familiar with. It has been with Universal Pictures for the longest time. That's where all of those Matt Damon led movies were released. But it looks like the rights over at Universal have expired. So the company that owns the franchise is now shopping the rights out to other studios. Now, here's the thing. Universal Pictures could still, as the Hollywood Reporter says here, Universal Pictures could still be, back in the game. They could still just re-up their deal, but it's not going to be an exclusive negotiation. So the Robert Ludlum State, which is basically, the owners of the franchise, they've been taking meetings, as they say here, with the Skydance. Skydance, of course, is now the new owner, or would be new owner of Paramount when that merger completes. Apple, which doesn't have a lot of it, very well-known IP. Of course, they've got Ted Lasso now, which isn't really a franchise unless they start to do spin-offs. They've got stuff like Severance. They've got stuff like The Morning Show, but they don't really have big franchises, right? Like biggest, most recognizable franchise they've got stuff for is like maybe the Peanuts franchise. But beyond that, I mean, Apple could do well potentially with investing in Jason Bourne. That would be like their spy franchise. Whereas like Amazon MGM has James Bond now. You have Paramount. Skydance already has, Mission Impossible. So if they were to get it, maybe they could do a crossover where Hunt meets Bourne. But then Netflix also could get in the game because Netflix has also expressed interest. So John, this is something where Captivate Entertainment, that's the company that oversees the franchise on behalf of the Robert Ludlum State. They've been shopping this franchise's rights now through WME, their agency, and it looks like they'll try to get top dollar. And one of the goals is they want to have an extended presence for the franchise, which could result in maybe a TV show, more spin-offs, maybe more movies. Because let's be honest, we haven't seen a movie in this franchise since 2016, when the last time we had Matt Damon come back and play Jason Bourne in the movie called Jason Bourne in 2016. So are you surprised that this is even the case? Because I mean, for me, when I came across the story, I was like, wait a second, I didn't realize that this was a set of rights that was going to expire anytime soon. But right. Universal has clearly let it go out into the open market, as it were. So do you think that means Universal is still potentially interested in retaining the rights, or do you think that because they are risking Apple and Netflix putting up more money than maybe they're willing to do? So A, do you think Universal gets it back? And then B, if not Universal, then who do you think would land the Jason Bourne the rights from here on?
I fucking hope it's not Netflix or Apple. I take Skydance. They're probably, we need another spy franchise now that Tom Cruise is leaving us and heading to fucking Warner Brothers. So I wouldn't be shocked if they took it. They have the money for it, and they would probably be good holders of it. But honestly, I would, again, this is like a thing I'm like been wanting to see more of. Would I mind if they continue with Matt Damon or do something in that world? Yeah, I wouldn't mind that, but I honestly want to see a readaptation of the original Robert Ludlum novel, which is like so fucking different from the movies. It's like they like merged characters and plot lines and stuff like that, and like they pretty much don't even match what Ludlum did for those first 3 books. So I would like to see more of their like the Bourne Identity kind of sort of adapts the first book, and then the sequels don't even come close to adapting those novels. Yeah. So I would say go and readapt the books, because I think that could be really interesting. Do it as a TV show. Again, that's what everybody's doing now. Readapt it as a TV show. That seems to be the thing now.
I think
Harry Potter.
Spy drama TV shows have got quite the renaissance. Obviously, I don't think they ever quite went away, but like Homeland was around for a long time. We have seen what was the one that was obviously 24, for example. There was the Minority Report. Well, was the Minority? No, the Minority Report was a movie. There was like a TV show that kind of felt similar to that back in the day. The name will come to me. But recently I've been watching The Agency, which is a remake of a French TV show that's on Showtime. So I watch it on Paramount Plus. There's so many of those shows out there, and it's something where with the budget of a Showtime or an HBO, you can tell a really high profile, highbrow story where you get the sheen of a movie, except this as a TV show. Like I think Apple, Netflix, they both have great track records with television. Skydance has been doing a great job of producing a lot of content across the board, obviously with Paramount, but also Skydance has an animation division. They've produced a bunch of stuff that has been distributed by Apple. So like there's quite a few things on Apple TV Plus you'll see the Skydance logo on. The Gorge was a recent movie that they put out through Apple TV Plus. So I wouldn't mind seeing that. I mean, hey, with this, what I would also be concerned with is Matt Damon going to come back? What about Paul Greengrass, who basically oversaw the franchise, directed most of the movies before? Do you think they go back and into the Jeremy Renner pot for bringing him back because he was one of the leads that in the Bourne Legacy movie that kind of came in between the first 3 and the 5th film? And then John, do you think moving forward, whether we get the original talent both in front of and behind the camera back, do you think they're going to want to do a reboot and start over wherever the rights land? Or do you think they're going to want a continuation, because then that way at least you keep some of those characters and stories that you've already told that people are familiar with?
Here's the thing, Matt Damon's pretty old now, and he doesn't have the eye for stuff like Tom Cruise, where till he's 90 kind of thing, where it's like he's gonna keep doing action movies till that he's in a wheelchair and somebody's fucking skirting him across goddamn like the desert and shit. Matt Damon. Anyway, so I can't imagine they'll do another Jason Bourne movie, especially when the last one was so bland and forgettable. So I no, I remember seeing like somebody did like an article on it comparing the two, and I'm like, that's fucking weird. Because I was like a kid at the time. I didn't understand, like, oh, I like the cool one with Matt Damon where he's beating up bad guys, when the original miniseries, which was more based on the book, was more like an espionage thing. So I'd like to see something like that, like slow burn espionage stuff, and then like God knows they've made more books in that series after Ludlum stopped writing them. So they made like fucking 14 other books in the Bourne franchise that follow that version of the character. So I could see, like, it's like Lee Childs with the Reacher series. It's like that man has made like 20 books. They can keep going until Alan Richardson is 90.
Dude,
so
I hope they do, because I would watch that show for the next 20 years if it came down to it. No, but I mean, hey, look, as far as the Jason Bourne franchise goes, in the modern era of spy movies, at least, you have your James Bond, you have your Ethan Hunt with Mission Impossible, and then you have Jason Bourne. So it's certainly a big franchise, this big IP, and between Skydance, Apple, and Netflix, I think all of them could do well to acquire something this big. Somebody let us know in the chat, was it Amazon MGM that acquired the rights to Tomb Raider, right? Because I feel like Tomb Raider was also the last one of these IPs that kind of went out in open market, and because the rights had lapsed with, I think, Lionsgate, I forget, it was Amazon MGM who bought into Tomb Raider, and now I think they're doing a reboot. But this is obviously the next one, and with James Bond recently having settled over at Amazon MGM, you obviously don't see Mission Impossible going anywhere. It's going to stick with Paramount, so maybe this is an opportunity for Apple and Netflix to get their foot in the door with Jason Bourne, or maybe Universal shells out some money. Yesterday, you were talking about on the show, John, how Universal, maybe doesn't have as much IP as, let's say, Disney. Certainly, nobody has more IP than Disney, or Warner Brothers with Harry Potter and DC and such. But I mean, Universal still has, like you said, Jurassic Park and Fast and Furious. They have all the DreamWorks properties, including Shrek, Despicable Me with Illumination Entertainment, and all those things. And with the Comcast money, they've obviously shelled out for a lot of things recently. They got a ton of money from Disney from selling their part of Hulu that was left over. So they've got billions of dollars in the bank, and they've bought NBA rights. They've brought a lot of sports packages, and now maybe they can go out and spend some money and get Jason Bourne back. But at the very least, I think for them to put this out in the open market, they're trying to see what the market value is. Will somebody pay over the odds? If Apple and Netflix pay way too much for Universal to be like, okay, that's unreasonable, fine, let it go, that's fine. But I have a feeling that they're looking to see what the actual value is, because the two parties couldn't figure out what was fair value between them. So hopefully we'll see, wherever it lands. I feel like Jason Bourne movies would still be financially viable. So the sooner they figure this out, the sooner we can get the next movie, and I would be excited to see it. And hopefully, we get even TV spinoffs. Like, this could have a whole franchise around it. I wouldn't mind seeing it as long as it's written well, like you said, John. So
yeah.
But hey, let's move the ball forward. We got a couple of more stories to go.
Wait, before one more thing, the other movie I was thinking of that I saw a trailer for that looks really good. It's by the director of Tucker and Dale versus Evil. Clown in a Cornfield. I'm super excited for that now. It's clearly like horror comedy, very tongue in cheek, but that just like it just looks like every schlocky slasher, but like in the best way possible, and I love it. But yeah, that was the other thing.
Nice. By the way, I agree with Enterprising's take. I mean, look, if Apple got it, Apple will do a really good job with it. And Man of Steel Magnolia saying Tucker and Dale was badass. There
Yeah.
you go.
With Apple, I would say if they're gonna do a TV reboot of the original series of the original books, I would say yes, have them do that. If it's movies, no, don't have Apple. Apple is they're too hit or
They
miss
could
with
do
movies.
both. I mean, but they could do both. I mean, look, I think this would be probably the biggest IP that they would have in their closet at that point, right? Like they don't have anything else that is a bigger franchise if they were to acquire Jason
Yeah, they
Bourne,
just have
so-
like Martin Scorsese under their bill.
well, yeah, but
And
Martin
Matthew Vaughn.
Scorsese isn't a franchise, right? The
I know.
Argyle sucked, so I don't think
They're still gonna fucking make another one. They're gonna connect it to Kingsman because
I'm sure. But how can they? Because Kingsman is over at 20th Century, so that's a Disney thing.
That's
now,
what they
so-
tried to do with Argyle. Like,
they
they're gonna
did.
like make it. It
They
like
hinted
makes
at
no
it,
sense because like
but-
they made it so that the character of Argyle was like connected to Kingsman, and I'm like, is Kingsman like totally fictional? It makes no sense.
The whole thing was as nonsensical, that post-credit scene, as half that movie was. So
Yeah.
with that said, guys, you know what's not badass, speaking of which, is basically what's been going on apparently over at CBR, Comic Book Report. We actually have a couple of articles in today's show from CBR, but you know, after this, I don't know how many more articles I'll pull up from that website, or Collider, or Screen Rant, or MovieWeb. All of these websites are owned by Valnet. And it looks like the leadership over at Valnet has basically, according to a recent lawsuit, been running what amounts to a digital media sweatshop, because they're paying people as little as $15 per article. And most of the time, if writers get frustrated with working too much, being underpaid and overworked, you get put on a blacklist. And so basically what's happened here is, after all these abuses have gone on long enough, they're getting sued, and hopefully this lawsuit, according to the people who are suing the company, they want this to become a class action lawsuit, so that all the writers that have been wronged by this company can over time hopefully get paid back for what they've had. Because I mean,
I worked. Here's the thing: I
crazy.
actually worked for Screen Rant for like
Yeah.
2 weeks, but luckily they hated my writing style so much that they just let me go, which is, I guess, was good, especially with this going on, is good in the long run, because it is true that I barely got paid for anything. I only wrote like 2 or 3 articles for them. You could still find them. You could search for my name on their website, and you can find the like 3 articles I did for them. 2, maybe 3. I forget how many I did. But yeah, you get paid pennies, and then after like the clicks are done, you get nothing. But you were doing like fucking 5 to 10 articles at once. It was ridiculous. I'm glad I got kind of shooed away from that, because that was a ridiculous thing. And it doesn't help that the like Screen Rant and Collider, they pretty much have really shitty, like, just clickbaity crap. And I tried to be like, it's a job, but then I'm like, well, how far am I willing to go? But hey, they let me go anyway, because they're like, we don't like how you fucking did this shit. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. I don't give a fuck.
I mean, look, the other thing I'm gonna say is, when you look at a lot of the content that these websites have, 90% of it is just clickbait stuff that makes no sense. Like, you go to Screen Rant, and half the stuff is either like top 10 or like lists, or just like top 5, or these are the things that you didn't know, stuff like that, where they're just like little factoids that don't amount to a good article. I cannot tell you how many amount of times I've clicked onto an article where the headline was absolute clickbait and gave me nothing of what the headline promised. And so it's very frustrating. Now, some of these companies weren't always owned by Valnet. Some of these websites, they were run by their founders, and Valnet has been consolidating over time, buying out these fan
the
created
Disney
websites.
of clickbaity sites.
And then they basically, what they do is they go in, they fire all the employees, bring in more contractors, slash the budgets, and then they basically focus on quantity over quality. Like, I was listening to one of you guys brought up in the chat, like the John Campea show, they talked about this, and they showed how literally some of these websites publish not just dozens, but maybe hundreds of articles per day, which is insane to think about. I'm like, who's looking for 100 articles from one website? I'd be fine if I got 5 good articles from one website, and that's the one that I go to. So,
Right.
I mean, when we do research for the show, we go through all of these, different websites like Deadline, The Wrap, Hollywood Reporter, Variety.
Yeah.
You've got so many sources beyond that. I mean, sometimes I go to like a movie web or something. You have IGN. There's all these news sources, right? The New York Times you were looking at earlier with the George Foreman news, but when you look at a lot of the stuff that comes out of these websites, I can tell you it's hard to pick out the stuff that actually matters from the stuff that is just complete crap, like that you don't need, that doesn't need to exist, that just is there for clickbait. And it's not surprising to me that, like, you've talked about it, your experience, like firsthand experience, that people who make noise get blacklisted, and then the ones who do work for them are basically working for pennies on the dollar, which is terrible. I think you have to pay.
Luckily,
well
I don't think I got
good
blacklisted
work.
from them. I just think in their eyes, I sucked so much to them that they're like, fuck it, fuck this guy. But so maybe that's good. That was better in the long run that I didn't get like blacklisted by this company, that I complained, because I didn't really complain. I just did whatever they told me to. I couldn't, quote unquote, match their writing style. That was like the reason why, because I guess they like had to re-edit my article. They're like, we're spending too much time on this guy. We need to go quick. Fuck this guy. Get rid of him.
I do, but like these editors are also probably getting squeezed, right? Because
yeah, of course. I'm not blaming
forced to
them.
make quotas, like you were working at an Amazon warehouse or something. But also at the same time, it just leads to terrible journalism where you're just incentivized to put out schlock, and then that results in just poor, lower quality content that ultimately leads to clicks but not a lot of revenue. It's like, just do good journalism and then you'll get more attention per article, as opposed to make 10 terrible articles that nobody wants to read or get a few clicks. Make 2 good articles that everybody like gets something good out of. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me that they basically bought some of these websites that had good reputations before they were owned by Valnet, and now they're just like full of stuff that it's quite frankly superfluous. Like, no, we don't need most of the articles that these websites publish. Every once in a while they'll give you something good. Half of the stuff on there is like theories for things and listicles and stuff like that. So but hey, I'm glad that they're being held to account, and hopefully this leads to some real change, maybe even unionization, because this is terrible. I mean, I don't appreciate this at all. I actually saw a job alert for one of these websites. I forget, I think it might have been Screen Rant, looking to hire people, and they were just like, the compensation they were offering was worse than some internships I came across back when I was in college, which should go to tell you, just again, like you said, John, it's not good. It's not good. Like,
not good at
all.
If
you want to work for these websites, no, just you could do a lot better than that. But yeah, it's a sad state of affairs. But hopefully this lawsuit will lead to some good change. Now let's move on to the last story in the news section before we get into the quick hits. So we talked about earlier a bunch of franchises. We had the Jason Bourne franchise. We've talked about James Bond today. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise has been on the shelf for a bit, John, but it's now apparently revving up some interest from studios who want to maybe bring Leatherface back to the screen. So here's something I want to read from the top of the article before I get your reaction to it. So this is an exclusive from Deadline. They said the studios and filmmakers are knocking on Verve's door as the agency is sitting on bloody good IP that they're looking to take on the town. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Verve has repped the rights for the slasher series created by Toby Hooper and Kim Henkel since 2017, at a time when horror and franchises are really the only surefire bets at the post-COVID and strike-impacted box office. The 51-year-old horror property about a chainsaw-wielding serial killer still has potential to make a killing. So, yeah, my question to you would be, does it have the potential to make
No, it doesn't. They haven't had a good entry in this franchise since like 1982. Like, it's like, outside of maybe the remake and its prequel, like, no movie in this franchise has been good. Like, even Texas Chainsaw Massacre fans will tell you that none of these movies at like 3, Next Generation, Leatherface, the newest Texas Chainsaw Massacre that came out in 2022 is the worst horror movie I've ever seen in my life. And that's saying something. I've seen plenty of bad movies. It's not my least favorite horror movie I've ever seen, but it's the worst. The acting was bad. The horror was bad. It was technically like terribly made. It was so cheap. It was like half of the like technical aspects didn't work.
I think we reviewed it on this on the channel here a couple of years ago when that came out.
It was just fucking horrendous. Like, the movie was so bad, it made my friend swear off the franchise. Like, I'm not watching another movie from this franchise. That one was so bad. And they tried to do a Halloween thing where they were like, oh, Sally Hardesty is like the new like Laurie Strode of this franchise, and then she like gets immediately she got like immediately killed, and it was just so dumb. Like, everything about that movie was just like the worst and just terrible. Like, it had some good kills maybe, and maybe like the cinematography was like okay, but like outside of that, it was just horribly made. So like I don't think anything from this franchise can be any good, but I don't know.
Here's what I will say.
Don't care.
I'm not a horror fan necessarily. I wouldn't describe myself as a horror fan. I usually lean towards psychological horror stuff with like, the Shutter Island, for example, I always point to. But Texas Chainsaw Massacre has that name recognition. And like the article says, at a time when IP and horror movies are pretty surefire bets in a world where a lot of movies are not, like, the Alto Knight's not doing well. Even something like Snow White isn't doing well. So Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like, you make another movie like this, you probably don't have to spend $50 million even. You could maybe spend half that, like 25 million to make a good movie, or just a passable one, and then your break-even point is probably really, really low. You make 50 million to 75 million at the box office, you're good. Like, you made profit. And then these kind of movies do well at the ancillary markets when you get into streaming and digital sales and Blu-ray and DVD stuff. So I understand from the business perspective that studios want to get in the game, and they don't want this to just sit on the shelf. They want to make some money off of it. But like you said, there's been such a terrible track record with this franchise in recent memory that I don't know how many fans are going to jump at the idea of going to see another Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie anytime soon. So we'll see. I mean, hey, this is just talking about how there may be interest and studios are lining up, but we don't have any deal in place. Nobody has entered final negotiations of any kind. So we'll see where things go from here. But in the meantime, John, we do have to switch over now to the quick hits. So why don't you hit that quick hits music? Let me bring on in some of the stories we got to talk about. A bunch of casting stories from the world of Hollywood. All right, well, now it's time for some quick hits. So the first one, Only Murders in the Building Season 5 has now cast Christoph Waltz. Your thoughts? You are muted.
I don't watch the show, but I like Christoph Waltz. I wouldn't watch the show for him, but yeah.
I mean, I can't wait for
I'll just watch Django Unchained again.
Because I don't know who he's going to be playing, but he's going to be a recurring role. And, well, Christoph Waltz in anything, sign me up. I just wonder if he's going to play himself, because we got a bit of that this past season. So we'll see where things go. But I wouldn't mind. I mean, maybe he could be the killer of the new season. That'll be a little obvious, but he's probably going to play something else.
He would be a really good red herring. Like, they'll be like,
he would be a really good red herring. Yes,
I am the clearly evil one, but then they're like, oh no, that's too obvious. But then it whips back around, and he actually is the killer. But then it turns out, no, he's the double red herring.
Yes.
Boom. There you go.
There we go. Now we have figured that we have already solved the mystery. Season 5. You don't even need to watch it. All right, Lauren Graham. Yes. She, of course, was a big part of Gilmore Girls, a show that I quite enjoyed back when it was on, and I've seen it a couple of times over since it's been on. She recently was talking about how she doesn't get any residuals from the Gilmore Girls Netflix popularity. She says, I've been paid in love. Your thoughts on Lauren Graham's
co-parter? That's like, I've been paid in love, guys. I wish I could be making money from this. Anyway.
All right. Well,
I
mean, it is what it is. Maybe she needed to have a better deal in place. I mean, I know Netflix royalty deals are interesting because they get a pact with the studio that's distributing, which I think is Warner Brothers in this case. But anyway, American Dad poised to return to Fox for season 20 and beyond. Are you surprised? Are you interested? Do you care at all for American Dad getting yet another season and
considering
more?
From what people have said, it's the only good Seth MacFarlane show, so like, good for them. Hopefully it keeps that pace. It's like one of the few still good like adult cartoons, that South Park and Bob's Burgers are the probably only ones that are actually still good that have been on for a long time. So, yeah.
Nice. Well, Caleb says it's better than Family Guy. There you go. Enterprising. So a bunch of IOUs, and then Elite Easy saying your love don't cost a thing. Yeah. Well, ask Lauren Graham, because apparently she's only getting paid in love. The Orville was fun though. Yeah. No, Caleb and Elite Easy, both of you guys, I agree with you. The Orville is a good Seth MacFarlane show.
Oh yeah, that's a great show. I still have hope that they're gonna have a season 4. I know that's dumb. But like, it's kind of just been like, it's kind of like what Doctor Who was in the 90s, where it's like, it's not canceled, but it's not airing. So it's just like, well,
I'm just like, when it happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, I'm not gonna hold my breath for it. But maybe you want to hold your breath because there's a new horror thriller, Send a Scare, coming out soon, and now it's got Robbie Amell and Victoria Justice set to star in it, and of course, it's being directed by Josh Rank, who's returning to direct.
Wow.
I think he was, I don't know where he was the last little while, but this looks like to be his next project. Interested, John?
I mean, it does. I do like Victoria Justice. It has the better Amell brother, but it does have Josh Trank, and you know he hasn't made anything good since Chronicle, so we'll see. Yeah. Although I will say, I heard like some people say his Capone movie was good. Like, it wasn't supposed to be like an Al Capone movie. It was like showing the degenerative state of a guy who used to be on top of the world, but now he isn't. So, maybe, but you know, we'll see what he can do.
Well, I mean, I don't even know what Josh Trank last did. I feel like he might have just taken a step back from directing for a while. So, anyway, but the next casting news that we have is Zach Braff and Esther McGregor have clean hands. So they're joining up what looks to be a true story called Clean Hands, based on the life of hero drug cop turned recovery advocate Kevin Simmers and his daughter Brooke. So I'm guessing those are the two leads in this project. This is coming from director-writer Jake Allen. It's an exploration of the American drug crisis and the thin blue line from the opposing eyes of cop and addict who were also father and daughter. The cameras on this will roll in April to May, with Laura Mayfield of The Social Network and Gone Girl fame currently casting the rest of the project. Is this something that interests you, John?
Not really. I'm not a huge Zach Braff fan. Like, yeah, like he was like okay for a bit. Now I'm just kind of sick of seeing his face. I blame T-Mobile, but that's beside the point. But you know,
somebody's asking. I mean, Ron's asking, is she the daughter of Obi-Wan, like Ewan McGregor? I don't know. Is Esther McGregor Ewan's daughter? Somebody let us know in the chat.
Yes. She like literally, it pops up as like Esther Rose McGregor, actress. Ewan McGregor's daughter is like.
Got it. That's one of her. That's on her resume. That's on her
like
resume. There you go.
I mean, that's how she's getting these roles.
Who knows? I mean, look, I'm not gonna play the nepotism card here, but hey, best of luck.
It's just fun to make fun of.
But hey, you know what? We all get opportunities because we know people. That's just how the world works. Regina Hall joins Will Ferrell, Zac Efron, and Amazon MGM's comedy from Nicholas Stoller. The feature centers on payback for a TV judge. This is interesting. It's not titled yet, so we don't have a title for this project. But Nicholas Stoller is directing the project from his own script, with the movie previously titled Judgment Day, but I guess now we don't know what the title is. So obviously,
yeah, they're like, oh shit, Terminator 2. Can't call it that.
So what do you think? Will Ferrell, Regina Hall, Zac Efron, could that be a winning combination?
Maybe.
Cool. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I mean, look, payback for a TV judge. It's a comedy. Will Ferrell knows how to do good comedy. You know, he could be a hit or miss of late, but I'd still take him 8 out of 10 times in a comedy project. So we'll see. Now, of course, we talked about the other day, Tulsa King got renewed for a 3rd season. Now we know that Robert Patrick and Bo Knapp have joined Taylor Sheridan's, one of his many shows over at Paramount Plus, and they're both going to be regulars in the new season. John, so are you excited to see the Terminator, speaking of, joining into the Tulsa King season 3? What do you think?
I mean, he was in 1923, so that makes sense that he would bring him in for another show. Also, you know, the villain of Reacher last season.
That's right. I mean, that's kind of cool. Yeah.
Kind of cool. I don't know if I'll watch the show, but I'll tell my dad about it. He's like, hey, T-1000 is gonna be in fucking Tulsa King, and he'll probably be like, "Oh, cool, get the fuck out of my face now."
I saw this video where he was giving somebody a tour of like the LA, like what do they call it, the river or like the channel, like basically where they shot like some of the big action sequences in Terminator Judgment Day, and the stories he tells about like how they went about doing things back then. It's just fun. He's a great guy. As much as he likes to play the villain, I mean, obviously he's Peacemaker's dad as well, so DC connection there. And I love what Caleb has to say about him. He always looks like he hates me. In real life, he's a really nice person, but you know, a lot of the most iconic villains usually are. So hey, he's now joining another Taylor Sheridan show, having been in 1922, like you said. So this is a bit more of a somber note, so I'm going to turn off the music for this one. We started the show off today talking about the passing of George Foreman, but also earlier today we heard that another actor, maybe perhaps not as well known, passed away. Jan Schweiterman, who I remember as like the villain in Good Burger. He has passed away at the age of 52. He was an Indiana native. He also appeared in episodes of McKenna, ER, and Felicity during his brief career. So he wasn't somebody who, you know, had a very iconic or prestigious career in Hollywood. But you know, as it says there, he was a big part of that Good Burger movie that recently had a sequel, which I don't know if he was a part of that one, but he was the owner and manager of Mondo Burger and Good Burger. So yeah, that's how I remember him.
That's how I remember.
What are your thoughts
too.
on his passing? I mean, 52, it feels like he's gone too soon.
That kind of a shame.
Yeah.
You know, at least it's like, it's kind of reminds me of Michelle Trachtenberg, where it was like not incredibly young, but also not incredibly old either. Like George Foreman, that was 76. That's a pretty long life. It could have been longer, but you know, it's still relatively long, especially for a guy who was a boxer, which, you know, with the amount of hits they take, it's a lot. But, you know, it's sad to see. It's still sad to see. I'm not going to act like I was a fan. As I said before, I'm not going to, oh my God, this guy. But, you know, I remember him in this movie and he was like kind of funny. So, like, you know,
it's one of those movies I grew up on. So, you know, you pop in the VHS or the DVD and you just enjoy it. So you remember the face, you remember the actor for what they did. Unfortunately, he couldn't translate that into a huge career beyond it. He obviously did a few things in television, but never quite grew too far beyond that. His brother Chad posted on Facebook saying that he was recently diagnosed with a very aggressive form of stage 4 cancer. So that's likely what, you know, led to his passing. He passed away at Mercy Hospital in Washington, Missouri. So our thoughts and prayers and, you know, best wishes with his family. Remember him for Good Burger and, of course, the many other things that he did. And hopefully, you know, his legacy will go on as a lot of fans like me, myself, and yourself of Good Burger continue to watch him.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm a fan of Good Burger, but, you know.
Well, I am, so I will continue to watch it, and now I'll, you know, always fondly remember. I always did, and I always will fondly remember him as one of the big parts of that movie, because yeah, it was pretty hilarious, just him and then watching Kel, Keenan, all of those guys. So that brings us to the close of the news part of the show, guys. So let us know down below in the comments which of the news stories you enjoyed the most. What did you like? And of course, while you're at it, hit that like button, hit that notification bell if you have already subscribed. If you haven't, then hit the subscribe button. What are you doing? Let us know what you thought about all the news and quickest from today. In the meantime, we're going to move on to the MCU weekly part of the show. Now, of course, Liz was originally meant to be on today's show, but she's not feeling well, so Liz is out for
That's what she
for the
says.
night.
I think she's just sick of us, Dan.
It's possible. It's possible. Well, but we're gonna fill in. We're gonna talk some Marvel, and then of course we do have DC on the horizon. So we do promise we have lots of DC to talk about. But before we do, we have to talk about some MCU news. John, stop yawning. We've only just started.
Bro, it's almost midnight. I'm fucking tired, bro.
It's fair, dude. But like, I'm in the same boat. But of all the MCU stories that you saw in the rundown, do any of them stick out to you? What are you most excited to talk about?
Fucking none of them.
All right, that's not surprising, but you know what? We'll get started. And so this Amanda Seyfried, of course, she is well known for many different roles, and she could have been known as Gamora, as it turns out, because Amanda was recently being interviewed, asked about hey, weren't you offered the role, or weren't you going to be in Guardians of the Galaxy? And she was like, I got the offer for Gamora, but then I thought I'd be Marvel's first flop and I'd never work again. I wouldn't get any more roles because it's about a talking tree and raccoon. So she passed on it. And obviously Zoe Saldana went on to play the role. And as we know now, Gamora had a huge part to play in both of the previous Avengers movies. And of course, the whole trilogy of Guardians of the Galaxy films. So having been on the latest episode of Happy, Sad, Confused, we finally get to find out that in an alternate reality, Amanda Seyfried could have been our Gamora. I mean, I can see it. Just look at the side-by-side photos. Maybe in a different role, we could have been like, she was the perfect Gamora. But I mean, in the world that we live in, Zoe Saldana is the perfect Gamora. But what are your thoughts on the idea that maybe Amanda Seyfried could have been Gamora?
I think she could have done it. Zoe Saldana is really good in the role. It's just like, it's a shame because Gamora is one of those characters that kind of got gypped in the movies because they didn't really do as much as they could with her. And, you know, she was not like, in the comics, she's like the greatest fighter in like the galaxy. And they don't really touch on that in the movies. They don't really showcase that much. But
they do sort of hint at it, but they never explicitly talk about it.
Yeah,
that way.
they like never really like double down on it. So, you know, yeah, like, you know, James Gunn, who the fuck is this guy?
Guardians of the Galaxy, I remember that was like the first risk that the MCU was taking because nobody and their grandmother had heard about Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, nobody knew what Guardians of the Galaxy was. To the point where, I mean, they had Chris Pratt, not to mention they had Chris Pratt in the lead role, somebody who had never done much of anything of note beyond Parks and Recreation at that time. So I get it. I totally understand where they were coming. And then they had Batista in it. Batista was also up and coming. So that movie was built.
I mean, he was known as a
lot
wrestler.
of
Oh, it's another wrestler guy.
Right. But it was just a lot of people like then James Gunn wasn't a well-known director at the time. So Amanda Seyfried, if she was part of the movie, she would have been already the biggest star on the marquee. Not to, I mean, and of course Bradley Cooper voicing the character of
yeah, but
Raccoon,
they didn't really like showcase that as he was still like a talking raccoon, and then like you also technically had Vin Diesel, who was also the biggest name, but you had the two biggest names hiding behind CGI characters. So
that talking tree is family. Damn it, I agree with you.
What's real is family.
Yeah, and to this day, I do wonder. I'm like, how long did Vin Diesel actually spend in the sound booth recording his 2 words? Like, he probably did like 20 different
3
variations.
words. He said, "I am Groot."
I am Groot. Okay, yeah. So he probably said it like 50 times in like 5 different nuances or like enunciations, and then he was just like, "Okay, I'm done. Use that however you will."
No, like apparently he did like. Well, what was so funny is like I remember him like there he did it for like at least like I think it was like a week or something like that, but he would like actually like to get into the mind of the character, he put himself like on like stilts, and like this was like right after Paul Walker passed away, so he found it to be very like cathartic and therapeutic for him to like kind of do something that's like very mellow and easy. And with that, he also recorded the lines for "I am Groot" in
that
every
moment though. VR Groot was actually that did made me cry the first couple of times watching.
He recorded in every language. Like, so if you're like listen to the Japanese version of Guardians of the Galaxy, Vin Diesel is doing that line. You hear Vin Diesel doing like the Japanese version, the Spanish version, the French version. Every version is Vin Diesel.
Because he probably felt guilty for taking that much money for doing that little work. He's like, you know what? I will do it for all of those different languages. That's fine. I got plenty of time. I mean, but Enterprising making a good point. Star Wars was a big risk when it came out, and to Marvel this was their version of Star Wars, and it was that level of a risk because up until that point they hadn't done anything that was quite cosmic in the way that Guardians of the Galaxy was. And quite frankly, the results were amazing. I think Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one, is probably one of the top 3 MCU movies to date, certainly top 5. And the whole trilogy, if I'm being honest, the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy might potentially be better than even the Captain America trilogy or the Iron Man. it's at least to me it's in the same tier as that Captain America and Iron Man trilogy of movies. And it's just one of the high points of the MCU anytime. And it's you look at the first two, and even though the third one kind of feels a little distant from the first two because you had two Avengers movies come and go in between, James Gunn, always delivered, and Zoe Saldana, I think, was very well cast. But hey, in another world, maybe Amanda Seyfried could have been it, because we've seen things like this happen throughout the history of Hollywood. Like, what was it? Harrison Ford wasn't supposed to be Indiana Jones. Tom Selleck was supposed to ended up with the role. There was a world where William Shatner wouldn't have ever been James Tiberius Kirk, because Star Trek originally started in a very different direction. So there's a lot of iconic roles that could have gone differently, and this seems to be just the latest one that went differently. So hey,
Yeah,
but Amanda
I mean,
Seyfried
Emily
could've been a great
Blunt was
pick.
supposed to be Black Widow,
That's
but
right. You're right.
they were like, but she was stuck in a contract and she had to do Gulliver's Travels because like she couldn't get out of it, and so she had to say no. And she's like, I still regret it, but I was under contract, so I had to fucking do this garbage ass Jack Black movie. Yeah, and what was so funny is like Matt Damon, like Jim Cameron gave him a like, okay, you're gonna get like 10% of the profits of this movie.
That is one of
And
the worst financial decisions Matt Damon has
he
ever made in
literally
his
said that.
life.
He was in an interview. He's like, okay, you're gonna star in this movie. We'll give you like 10. It was like something like very minuscule, but like 10% of the profits, and all this other shit. He's like, but he's like, I just didn't vibe with the script. I didn't like this. I thought it was gonna flop. And then he's like, and then he finished the question by saying, and that was the worst financial decision of my entire career. Bro could have made like
Dude, he could have been
$200
rolling in it
million
by now.
dollars.
And he's got like, he would have had 4 more movies left to come out. Like, come on now, it's crazy. 10%, like we talked
Probably
about
would have been
RDJ
better because
getting
God
paid.
knows Matt Damon can actually act, unlike fucking
yeah.
Sam Worthington.
I'm like, RDJ has made a ton of money off the MCU. Matt Damon would have made even more, considering how much those 2 Avatar movies have already made, not to mention what's to come. Yeah. But yeah, look, Amanda still has a fantastic successful career, so hopefully the next time a role like this comes her way, she'll take the risk, but you never know. It's a hindsight is always 2020, so we can look back at these decisions in our careers for all of us in different ways. We look back and we could have done that differently, but then you wouldn't be where you are today, maybe for the better or for the worse. So
yeah. Maybe it would have been a flop if she starred in it.
Maybe, who knows? Maybe that's the butterfly effect, right? And then maybe the MCU wouldn't have even survived today. Maybe everything would have gone that far south. Who knows? But moving on, the next thing that we have to talk about is, of course, Ryan Reynolds. He was celebrating today, or I think this might have even been, actually it was today. It was earlier this morning. He was talking about the 10-year anniversary from when they shot their first scene for the Deadpool franchise. He thanked Tim Miller, David Leitch, Sean Levy, and countless other artists and crew members and storytellers, saying, and no doubt, Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick, without whom none of this would be a reality. Basically, celebrating 10 years since they started working on this franchise. 3 movies in, 10 years later, John. It's a movie franchise that, quite frankly, transformed Ryan Reynolds' already pretty successful career. It changed how Fox looked at the X-Men franchise. And it went from basically being a situation where Deadpool as a character was somebody who Fox, quite frankly, didn't care for, to by the time that Disney was acquiring the X-Men franchise, Deadpool has been the only character from that X-Men universe that has come across and has had an MCU movie. Like none of the other Fox X-Men characters came over and had their own dedicated MCU movie. Granted, they had Wolverine in it too, so I suppose that counts maybe. But I mean, it's the Wolverine. So, what are your thoughts on, again, just the 10 years of Deadpool? It changed what a horror, not horror, but what a rated R superhero movie could be, because the first Deadpool came out and the second Deadpool came out before the first Joker movie came out. So those 2 movies really broke ground, telling studios that you can make rated R superhero movies and they will make money. And obviously then Joker went on to make $1 billion, but then Deadpool and Wolverine recently made like 1.2, 1.3 billion. So 10 years later, John, what do you think about the Deadpool franchise as a whole and what Ryan Reynolds had to say here?
I'm happy that he is doing this character that he loves so much, but at the same time, he's been playing the same character in every movie he's ever been in for the past 10 years. So I don't know. I mean, it's kind of like a pro. I mean, I know Ryan Reynolds wasn't exactly the greatest actor ever, but I wish, like, at least with like Tom Cruise, like he had an illustrious career like behind him. So when he started just doing Mission Impossible movies, it's like, okay, well, at least he did like stuff like Bourne on the 4th of July and Top Gun and Days of Thunder and like Interview with the Vampire that showed he could be a good actor. Like the most Ryan Reynolds had was like Van Wilder and like Two Guys in a Pizza Place or whatever the fuck that show was called. And like
I mean, he was
all
on
these
an
other
episode
like
of X-Files back in the day. He looked very different back
who
then.
wasn't in X-Files? Like
That's true. That's
I'm
true.
pretty probably I was probably in an episode of X-Files and I wasn't even born yet. So you know,
I want to believe, John, the truth is out there.
that's such a great show. I the only reason I stopped watching that show is because they took it off of Netflix. But I so it's like kind of give or take. Now I'm just kind of fucking sick of Ryan Reynolds at this point. He's just a one-trick pony, and it's sad because it's just like toning down. Yeah, exactly. Like I don't care what anybody says. Chris Pratt is the better Ryan Reynolds because Chris Pratt actually has more range than Ryan Reynolds does. There, I said it. Anyway, but yeah, it's just like it's cool, and I mean I like Deadpool, but now I'm just kind of sick of Deadpool, kind of sick of Ryan Reynolds, especially with the whole like fucking Baldoni
Dude, but
fucking
did you
shit
hear
with
he's
it.
now suing his own rep? That dude just needs money. He's just suing everybody around him. He's suing his own people because he's not getting anything from anybody else. I don't know what's going on with that man. But I
Bro
do
just
not
needs
care
to do some
address it.
scratchy lotteries
I
and maybe he'll get the
it's
money he
just-
wants.
I'm not gonna dive into that mudslinging pool.
No,
but
no,
with
no,
Ryan
no.
Reynolds
I
and
know. I'm just
Deadpool-
saying, like,
if the superhero genre wouldn't have expanded into the rated R territory as much if it wasn't for Deadpool, and if it is only that.
what other
that
fucking
you
movies
count
have
as
been
his
rated R
contribution.
outside of Deadpool, though? Except for, like, maybe Logan, but, like...
No. But I'm saying the idea that they made it feel like you can make a mainstream superhero movie that could potentially have a character of the popularity of Deadpool, that wasn't as possible. It wasn't as easy to get that greenlit. Even Fox barely greenlit the first Deadpool movie, and it made like $700 million. And then the second one made a good amount of money, pretty much the same, if not more. I forget how much more it did than the first one. And then of course Joker comes in and does $1 billion. The third Deadpool does over $1 billion. So yeah, it changed things. I mean, Logan made a decent amount of money. It wasn't Deadpool level of money. So, but Logan even came out after the Deadpool movie. And I bet you Fox would have been less likely to make Logan rated R if Deadpool had not existed. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's a big contribution to the franchise. And plus, Deadpool is the movie franchise that has given us names like Tim Miller, David Leitch, and Sean Levy was around for a long time before. But David Leitch, who's gone on to be a big part of the John Wick franchise. Tim Miller.
I mean, he did John Wick before Deadpool, and Tim Miller has only done that god awful Terminator movie. So like. What has he done?
But still, I mean, these guys wouldn't have transitioned over to. I mean, Tim Miller wouldn't have transitioned over to doing directing if it wasn't for, Deadpool movies, right? So, yeah. Well, anyway, moving on to Ironheart. Disney Plus. The Disney Plus series has put out some new photos showcasing Riri's new Iron Man suit. I'll be honest with you, going through these photos, Sean, I was not as impressed as I thought I might be. These are just a couple of them, and then you see a little bit of flying going on here. It feels like you're getting some elements of that Iron Man 3, like she's in that cave with the suit hanging down, and then you get this really colorful version. We've obviously seen this character a little bit in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, but when you look at these photos, what are your thoughts? Are you
Adam
even
Sandler? That Adam Sandler
interested?
gif is pretty much my thoughts on this. I don't give a fuck about Ironheart. Nobody gives a fuck about Ironheart. They're only doing this because Bob Chapek fucking greenlit this shit. So, and this half of the Marvel projects were like, I guess we're getting this because Bob Chapek fucking greenlit this shit. So, cool, I guess. Like the same thing happened with the Wonder Man series that nobody cares about. So all 3 Wonder Man fans, I guess.
That one
but
actually people are talking up, but then again, they're the people at Marvel Studios, so of course they'll talk it up. So I don't know how good that's gonna be. But Yahya Abdul-Mateen is a great actor. I mean, he did a lot with not much with those Aquaman movies in terms of what he was given to do. So yeah. I mean, TC24, you're making the point that Watchmen, V for Vendetta, Kick-Ass, and Blade all exist. Yes. None of those movies hold a candle to the box office success of the Deadpool franchise. And that's what I mean by what Deadpool did. Like, for example, Caleb saying Logan wouldn't exist without Deadpool, probably because they made like 2 other Wolverine movies before, and one of them came pretty close to being rated R, except then they dumbed it down. But then when they saw that, hey, Deadpool made quite a bit of money, maybe we can have somebody as popular as Wolverine actually have a rated R film. And then they did, and it's probably the best Marvel movie of all time. So I'm just saying, you know, it wouldn't have been as possible for other movies that have come out since the mainstream superhero movies. Because let's be honest, Blade is much more appreciated today than it was when it first came out. And even now, now I guess it would be more mainstream, but back then it was more of a niche character. It created a path for superhero movies to be what they are today, but not on the same scale as Deadpool has.
Caleb, shut the fuck up.
Logan is not overrated. Logan is
it's
honestly
properly rated.
It's the best Marvel movie ever made.
Ever. Period.
There's not many things John and I agree on, but that's something that we both agree on. But speaking of you know, what's coming up with Marvel, this is not Disney Plus. This is of course the next big Avengers movie, Doomsday. Apparently, according to a rumor report, I've never heard the two words put together like that, but a rumor report, to get your windmills out, because this is coming from the rumor mill. Tom Hiddleston's Loki might have a bigger role to play in Avengers Doomsday than we potentially thought. Now, this comes to us from, I believe, one of the scoopers out there in Hollywood. So let me scroll down. I'll read this out to you. So recently, it looks like Alex Perez held a Q&A session on the Cosmic Circus. So, John, I don't know what your mileage is with the Cosmic Circus, but basically he was talking about how
bullshit.
Loki might be at the center of Avengers Doomsday's story, operating as the MacGuffin. So now in movies, of course, if you guys are familiar with movie language, then MacGuffins are the kind of thing like somebody's chasing, right? The MacGuffin is that glowing golden thing in a box in Pulp Fiction. MacGuffin is like the rings in Lord of the Rings, like the ring that they're chasing after. That's the MacGuffin, the one big object that motivates the whole story. So what Perez said was, Loki will be our MacGuffin. The race against Doomsday will be a race to see who gets to Loki first. Now, the reason why this might make sense is because if you remember at the end of season 2 of Loki, he kind of ends up being the one who like controls the multiverse or keeps it together. He's like the Loki who remains. Spoiler alert for whoever hasn't seen it, but there you go. So if you go off of where we last saw Loki, it kind of makes sense that maybe if this is about the multiverse, this next Avengers movie, and on one side you have Doomsday and the other side you have Avengers, that they would be going after Loki, trying to get to the TVA wherever Loki who remains is right now. I mean, what are your thoughts on this, John? Do you think logically it makes sense? And even if it does, do you think it's a good idea to have somebody like a character like Loki be placed at the center of the story for Avengers Doomsday?
Possibly. I mean, I think they've used Loki a bit too much. So I think it would be kind of not great. But it would be kind of funny that like everything kind of comes full circle. Like the guy who was the villain in the first Avengers now becomes the MacGuffin of sorts in the next Avenger, in the 5th Avengers movie. So that's like kind of interesting. Kind of like we were going after him in a villain sense, but now we're going after him because we need him sense. So that's fair. But I can kind of see why, okay, we've seen enough of Loki. He's the Loki who remains. Now that's the first time, because I never watched Loki season 2. So he's the Loki who remains, I guess.
Because it was like the He Who Remains, the Kang that they killed, so now he's the Loki who remains. That's the
facts, Ron. But yeah, so I mean, it would be kind of interesting. It would kind of make sense if they do that. But at the same time, I'm like, let's try to. They're just hanging on to that fruit that Tom Hiddleston bears when they make him part of a project because everybody loves Tom Hiddleston and everybody loved him as Loki. So
It would
let's
be
use him as
interesting.
Loki again because money.
You know what? It would be interesting because if the rumors are true that this Doomsday, this Doctor Doom is essentially tied into Tony Stark in some way. If you go back to how this version of Loki even came into existence, is because he escapes with the Tesseract at the end of the Avengers when they're going back in Infinity War to bring all the different Infinity Stones together, and he uses that to escape from the grasp of that version of the 2012 Avengers crew. So, and that's where I think what Tony Stark was involved in recovery of that Tesseract, that particular Infinity Stone. So maybe it sort of comes full circle somehow. Maybe that version, maybe the Tony Stark here, maybe this Doctor Doom is Tony Stark from that reality where Loki escaped, and maybe their events, in that future went very differently. Maybe Captain America never quite returned
I don't
the
think
stone.
so.
I don't know. I'm just speculating here, but maybe that's how they tie it in.
Well, here's the thing. They did say that he's gonna be Victor Von Doom. He's not gonna be like a Tony Stark variant. They did already say that. So I don't think it's gonna be anything like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, it's gonna be interesting. I mean, you could do a lot worse than put Tom Hiddleston at the center of your story. So I wouldn't mind seeing that if they do go in that direction. It's interesting. At least on the surface, the logic adds up. So we'll see if that is true or not. It's a rumor. Take it as a rumor right now. We'll see when the movie comes out if that is true or not. Now, this is something that Lizz sent us, so I guess this is her contribution to the show for the day. This is from the Popcorn Podcast, and on this podcast, they were just talking about, can you name 3 MCU Oscar winners? So, John, I'll put the question to you. Can you name 3 MCU Oscar winners? Can you come up with at least 3 3 actors who have been in the MCU who have won Oscars?
Robert Downey Jr. is one.
Right.
Josh Brolin never won an Oscar, right?
I don't think so. He might have been nominated, but I don't.
Sir Anthony Hopkins.
So. Okay, that's an easy one. That's an easy one. You got one more to go.
One more to go.
And then I'm gonna pick 3, and I can't pick the ones that you picked. I mean, let's see.
Right.
Maybe I'll cheat off the chat.
Zoe Saldana.
Okay. Well, has she though? Has Zoe?
She just won for Amelia Perez.
Never mind. Now she has. Okay. All right. I'm still adding in the recent history. I'm gonna say Angelina Jolie, Eternals. She's won an Oscar. You already said Anthony Hopkins. Collector, Benicio del Toro, the Collector. He is one. And then I'm gonna Brie Larson. What an Oscar! She's an Oscar-winning actress, Captain Marvel. And then Ben Kingsley also, of course, playing Mandarin. There's quite a few, and not to mention Kate Blanchett, Thor's sister, is an Oscar-winning actress. So I mean, there's quite a few actually. So I mean, if it comes down to
would Kenneth Branagh count? Because Kenneth Branagh, I think, won for
Jamie Foxx, also Tommy Lee Jones, Sam Rockwell. I'm sure we're still missing a few, but like
not Bradley Cooper though. Even though that man is still trying to win that Oscar.
Still trying.
No matter how many fucked up.
Lupita Nyong'o, that's another good one. Yes, she did win an Oscar. That's right. Russell Crowe, also Oscar winner. Even though I much prefer his Jor-El than I do his
soon to be Denzel Washington if he is going to be in Black Panther 3.
Soon. Technically not yet, but soon.
Not yet.
Okay. All right. Well, that was a little fun game. I mean, Christian Bale and Natalie Portman, are they Oscar winners?
Didn't Natalie Portman win for Black Swan?
She did.
I don't think Christian Bale has won one.
What about Michael Douglas? Did Michael Douglas ever win an Oscar?
I don't think he ever won an
Gwyneth
Oscar.
Paltrow? I don't think so.
I don't think she won one.
This is funny. Matt Damon, technically, or Marissa Tomei, or Why do I always keep forgetting the dude? He was in The Old Man.
Jeff Bridges?
Jeff Bridges. Why do I always freeze up on his name? I want to say something else. I'm like, it's Jeff something. Anyway, Jeff Bridges. Cool. So many names. Well, fun game, Liz. Sorry,
He did.
Play with you.
He did win. Christian Bale did win one Oscar. He was nominated for Best Supporting Actor for The Fighter.
Okay. All right.
He was
and then
nominated
Michael Douglas won for Wall Street. Okay. All right. Cool. Thanks.
I
Ron,
didn't think he
for
won for
confirming.
Wall Street.
And TC24. Paltrow has an Oscar too. Okay. All right. Well, there you go.
And then
I mean,
she
there's
must have won
lots
for
of
Shakespeare in
Oscar-winning
Love.
actors. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect.
Now then when we get to DCU Daily, do it for the DCEU.
The DC. Okay. Yes. Ben Affleck. I can already go off the top. Ben Affleck is an Oscar-winning actor.
Has Lawrence Fishburne won an Oscar?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
What about the wizard in the first Doctor Strange? What's her name? Who plays the old
Tilda Swinton?
Tilda Swinton and the Narnia from the Chronicles of Narnia. She's won an Oscar or two. Yeah.
What did she win for?
I don't remember, but I do remember she won. Let me look it up. Tilda Swinton Oscar. Best Supporting Actress in 2008. What was that for?
Was it for I'm Not There?
Was it? Maybe. Somebody let us know in the chat. Well, I can't seem to easily Google that one. But anyway, guys, that's MCU Weekly for you. So that wraps up the MCU Weekly portion of the show. Hit that like button. Let us know in the comments down below.
She won from Michael Clayton.
Michael Clayton. Which actors from the MCU do you guys remember? The ones that have won Oscars. Let us know in the comments down below. Did we miss any of them? Of course, what are your thoughts on that Loki theory about Avengers Doomsday? Your thoughts on the idea of Amanda Seyfried missing out on the role or passing on the role of Gamora? Do you think she could potentially take on a different role in the future of the MCU? Of course, beyond that, we have Ryan Reynolds celebrating 10 years of Deadpool. And what else did we talk about? We talked about... Ironheart. Are you remotely interested in Ironheart? Let us know in the comments. Hit the like button while you're at it. But now, John, we have to move on to the main event. The main event, of course, on a day that we are honoring the legacy of George Foreman himself, it's time for the main event of the evening. It is time to talk about DCU Daily. So, as always, we have a lot to discuss. We have a bunch of stuff from Superman to Lanterns to Jason Momoa as Lobo to Supergirl. I mean, we've... and other potential theories and fan castings. So, John, what are your thoughts on all the different stories? What are you most excited to talk about?
More Lobo. I don't care. We've been talking about the shit for 3 days straight. I don't care. More Lobo. Give me more Lobo. Give me more Jason Momoa being a super stan for Lobo. I am here for it. Give him all the attention he deserves. This is the thing. This is the role he was born to play. Give him all the news stories, headlines, main event, everything. Give him all the things. Give him all the things, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, wait, John, no, look, he sent me the first look at Lobo. I'm going to show it to you on camera. Let's just watch this. No, I'm being told, no, I can't show it. I can't. Don't do it. Somebody, my inside voice just told me, don't do it. Don't do it.
He sent it.
It will be worth the wait.
It's so funny.
Did he send it to you?
He did.
Oh, no.
It's right.
I lost John. Damn it. The Warner Brothers got to him that fast. That's unfortunate. That is unfortunate. I'm
sorry, I had to.
I just love how quickly it's just like, you know, when an excited child is like, I'm so excited to show the world, and he goes to pick up the phone and the publicist off camera is like, don't do it. And he's like, oh, you almost caught me. He's like, you almost had me. And then he plays it off cool. He's like, it'll be worth the wait.
That was so funny.
It's like the most amazing, happening in real time. I'm like, whoever is Jason Momoa's publicist needs to go work for Tom Holland. Like, don't do it. Don't do it. It'll be worth the wait.
No, he just needs Benedict Cumberbatch.
And he just kept on going too in that interview. Anyway, all right. So moving on to the first story that we're gonna discuss today, John. Apparently, James Gunn is now following Disha Patani on Instagram, and she's an actress in Bollywood. But does that mean that she's about to make her superhero debut in DC? Do you think this is just a matter of, oh, he just followed somebody random? I know he followed a bunch of actors recently, and then people were speculating, does that mean he's about to cast them in a project? Or do you think he's just a fan of Bollywood cinema, and so he's following a few actors that work in it?
In the words of William Shatner, get a life. Why are we talking about this? Who cares who he follows? That doesn't mean anything. It could, but it's unlikely. Like, guys, come on.
Get a life,
this is
you know,
just...
get a real job. Get a life, you know, get a real job.
It's just, guys, come on.
It's, I mean, honestly, I don't know if this means there's a project that she's going to be a part of. Like, but Disha is an up-and-coming young actress. She's done a bunch of stuff. If you are a fan of Bollywood, you would recognize her. But just because James Gunn has followed her doesn't mean that he's going to cast her in something. He's watched quite a bit of Bollywood movies. He's talked about them in the past. He's followed a few other actors alongside Disha. So if that results in her being cast in a project, great. I'm sure she will bring a huge audience with her, but it doesn't guarantee anything unless we hear about it. So I just wanted to bring this up because it's another one of those, oh my God, he followed this person. That must mean there's something happening here. So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, maybe she'll make a fool of us and there'll be a new project with Disha in it for DC coming out next year. But until then, we know there's a Superman movie on the horizon, John. And we have yet another test screening report praising David Cornsweet. But more importantly, you talked about it yesterday. DC Japan put out like a special post saying tomorrow, teasing something. And now today we got the announcement of what they were teasing. So what they were teasing essentially is that Superman is going to be releasing in Japan on July 11th. You might be saying, well, Patel, like July 11th is the same date that it comes out in the US. Well, originally in Japan, the movie was supposed to come out on July 18th, a week later. But now it looks like the movie's coming out on July 11th. Now, there's still a few other markets where the movie will come out a little bit sooner. Like Kyle was saying earlier, in China, it's going to release on July 9th. And I can go through a bunch of other countries in a second where this movie is going to release and what day. So depending on where you live, you'll be able to see it at different days potentially. But for the opening weekend box office for the movie, I think it's significant, as they say in this post here on Threads, that releasing simultaneously in Japan and the US is going to be a big deal, because that means the opening weekend box office, you now also have Japan to talk about. Like, not only is it going to be North America, but you now also add Japan into that mix.
Interesting. So, I'm just curious why Japan of all places.
Well, this was just because this was DC Japan talking about it, so that's why we're discussing it. They're not going to be the only other international territory that will release it on day and date as the US.
Yeah, because I'm curious what other days, because it's like, it can't be just Japan, because it would be interesting to hear like what the worldwide is, because we were talking about this the other day, like what's, because we were saying, oh, what's Japan like
let me
go
through
here. We thought like maybe a clip was happening, but if it's doing a release date.
So here's the thing. They put out a trailer. Crazy. The trailer that they put out has everything, like all the titles in Japanese. But unfortunately, none of the footage in the trailer is new. It's basically the same exact trailer we've seen before, except that now they have Japanese titles in it. So no news there other than the fact that it, of course, is coming out on July 11th. Now, here are a few countries where it does release a day or two before it does in the US. So if you're in Belgium, France, the Philippines, you're going to get it on July 9th. And obviously, we mentioned earlier, China as well. If you're in Argentina, Australia, Brazil, Germany, Hong Kong, Hungary, Iceland, Mexico. In Mexico, July 10th, it only gets a limited release, but everywhere else I mentioned before, it's going to be July 10th. You can see on the screen here, Netherlands, Portugal, Singapore, Slovakia, Sierra Leone, Ukraine, all get it on July 10th. And then in Canada, Estonia, Spain. So basically, if you're in the US, Canada and US are going to be the same day. Spain, United Kingdom, India, Italy. India is a big market, of course. Norway, Romania, Sweden, Turkey, and of course the United States all get it on July 11th. So it pretty much, July 9th to the 11th is the release window. Now, I know for sure when this movie comes out, they're going to have early fan screenings. So for those of us in the US who are like, we don't want to wait till the 11th, I bet you a lot of us will be able to see it as early as the 9th anyway. And then for most of us, we can see it on July 10th, which will be the day of the previews. Now, having said that, recently Jeff Snyder was talking about it again. saying that I got a recent test screening report from somebody who saw it, and yeah, they liked it. They thought David delivered as a Man of Steel. They thought Gunn did a good job balancing the heart and humor, and they said it's around 140 minutes approximately. Some people don't love it. Some people think it's too jokey or the tone's off, or they saw the comedy out of context. Some people really like it. There's a range of opinions. So, I mean, two questions. Do you like the release strategy so far with DC? They're releasing it for the most part.
We'll say
most countries
it's on the
same weekend.
thing that's actually factual here is the release stuff.
So,
and
what are your thoughts on that? And then, of course, after that, you can address what Jeff Snyder had to say.
I like that because now I don't know if this is the same for every other country, but usually, I could be wrong. Maybe Free Field tell me I'm wrong, but usually for an American production, usually we get it first. Usually other countries get it like maybe like a couple days later, like a week or so later. So it's interesting that a bunch of them, even if it's by a few days, it's interesting how other countries are getting it first, which kind of doubles down on the idea that it feels like they're really going in on the international market. That's where, you know, that's where they think the money is. And I feel like that's a good thing because it feels like people in America are either like, sure, there's a lot of people that are excited for it. Yes, but then there's like the whole like rumbling and tumbling of like fan versus fan. Oh, the idea of hope is bullshit, nihilism all the way, like all this other shit. Like then it's like, oh, or you have all the people that are like, oh, Superman's boring. You have like way too much of like people versus people in regards to this character that it's like, yeah, fuck that shit. Meanwhile, people in India are just like, yo, give us Superman, man. Or Brazil, let's go. Japan, hell yeah, let's fucking go. Superman. And so, like, you have all these international people that are like super stoked for this character, for this, ironically, this American, icon. And yet it feels like the Americans are the ones that are the least excited about it. Yet all these international audiences are like stoked for it because, like, hell yeah, fucking give us Superman. So I feel like that's interesting, and they're using that to their advantage. So yeah, even though we might not be getting as much marketing, which kind of sucks because he is an American character, but it seems like they're really doubling down on the international market, which I think is an interesting way to do it. But if you can tap into that market, then I would say go for it, especially with like China and India that have really big like populations and a lot of people that are willing to go see this movie, even though India has its own film industry with Bollywood. So if you can tap into that market and in WB's eyes get a lot of money in that, then I think that's really interesting, and I think that's smarter than what we've given them credit for at this point. But yeah, I could see why they're like, oh yeah, America, let's try to go. Let's see what India and Brazil and Japan thinks with this one.
I mean, India, like, it's not just Bollywood. It's like a Bollywood, Tollywood, Collywood. They've got like many different film industries.
Oh yeah, of course, many.
Out what a lot of people colloquially might refer to as just Bollywood, but Enterprising saying, yeah, an American alien created by the sons of Jewish immigrants. That's a perfect way of summarizing who Superman is, and he is an American icon. And then Elite Easy was saying that it's going to be James Gunn's dad's birthday, July 11th. Right. So yeah, the date is very sentimental to Gunn, as Enterprising is saying. So yes, I do believe for a lot of fans who want to honor that memory for Gunn, who will remember his dad today, because his love for Superman is connected a lot to how his dad helped introduce him to the character, and all the way back in the day, he's talked about that a lot. So, I mean, for people like Enterprising and for myself and for yourself, like, Superman is one of our favorite, if not our favorite, superhero character. So we are all rooting for him, and I am just really happy that we're now going to get Japan as the latest country to be releasing the movie not a week later but the same week, so that people in Japan don't have to see the spoilers online. They can go see the movie for themselves and enjoy it with everybody else. And given that it's going to release a couple of days early in July 9th in some places, I'm sure the word of mouth will travel across the countries that will get it a couple of days later. So and then in Canada, Ron is saying people are pumped for Superman. Yeah, I think when they drop the next trailer and hopefully just days from now, whenever, I think CinemaCon is coming up, not this weekend, but the next weekend. It's going to be all over the news. It's going to probably break more records. The first trailer did fantastic. This next trailer, I think, is going to be that next jumping off point for where this movie can go from a marketing standpoint. It's already going to be like Superman Day coming up. There's the whole Summer of Superman comic book series. So the marketing for this is only just starting to ramp up. So I just can't wait for when the trailer drops. We're going to then go frame by frame as we did with the first trailer. And we're going to talk about all the possibilities. What is the story for the movie going to be? But until then, we now know that Japan is the latest country to join in on the day and date release. It's going to come out the same day in Japan that it does in the US. Now, John, we have to talk about Lobo. As you mentioned earlier, you're very excited to talk about Lobo. So you talked about him in detail yesterday because Jason Momoa, of course, did that whole interview discussing not only in his promotions for the Minecraft movie, but he went on, was it Jimmy Kimmel, was it, that he went on? And he was talking about the character. I think it was Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon. Either that or Anthony Carrigan went on one of the other, whichever the case was. But he's obviously been out there promoting Minecraft, and people do ask him a lot about Lobo, which he's still filming. But he did mention that while his role in Supergirl is pretty small, he's excited because, he's gonna be around for a lot longer. Like, he's not just gonna be in there for a cameo in Supergirl. Because he said that, yes, I'm in there for a little bit. But then when the interviewer at Screen Rant, speaking of, we talked about them earlier, the interviewer there asked him, do you think we'll be hanging out with him for a while? To that, Momoa said, I hope so. I hope so. He said it like 3 times. I hope so. It's her movie, so it's great. I just come in for a little bit. But then he went on to say that, hey, well, this is the role I've always wanted to play. That's the comic I loved. I'm really, really nervous about it. It's kind of a no-brainer to play this character. It's pretty big. I don't want to give away too much. But I mean, we look pretty dead on, exactly like the character. And then he's pretty rough and gruff. And I'll say the bike's really cool. So, but basically describing to us without showing us the actual photo, he's telling us that the character is pretty close to his comic book look, John. So where do you see him next showing up in the DCU beyond Supergirl?
His own movie. That would be nice. But I like we were saying this yesterday, how he was probably gonna have he's probably gonna have a slightly bigger role than what was in the comic, because Tom King originally wanted to use Lobo, but then he had to use like a generic bounty hunter character because they wouldn't allow him to use Lobo for whatever reason. So there's that. So they're probably gonna, I would say maybe 15 minutes, not even 10 to 15 minutes is probably his how long he's going to be in the movie for. And if that does well, if he does well, they're probably going to give a movie. And we already know he can lead his own movie. And we already know that dark anti-hero-esque characters that are also funny can work, because we're just talking about Deadpool. So, I feel like if they really want to showcase DC's Deadpool, because DC's Deadpool is Lobo, not Harley Quinn, as DC really wants us to believe. But I think that would be awesome, because Lobo's a really weird, interesting character, and I would love to see him in more stuff, especially a guy who was pretty much born to play the role. So yeah, give me more Lobo, give me more Jason Momoa as Lobo, because he's just a really awesome character. He's a really awesome character, and it's nice that we finally get to see him in live action proper than, anything else that we've seen before.
Now, in the comics, Lobo is usually connected directly to Superman. Obviously, we're getting him in a cameo in the Supergirl movie. You mentioned on the show yesterday that Lobo was originally meant to be in the Woman of Tomorrow comic, but then the writer wasn't giving permission. But maybe they're trying to rectify that today, kind of like with how Miss Marvel's origins in the comics used to be. She was an Inhuman because they couldn't make her an X-Men, and now they're changing that up for the MCU. So in the same spirit of things, do you think, we know, for example, that Superman is going to have a cameo? That's pretty much been confirmed at this point, that David Cornsweet Superman is going to have a cameo in Supergirl. So do you think there's any chance that Jason Momoa's Lobo and David Cornsweet Superman, the two characters that usually cross paths in the comics, do you think they'll cross paths in the Supergirl movie to potentially set up maybe a future altercation, whether it's in a solo Lobo movie or the Superman sequel?
I don't think so. I know he appeared in Superman Man of Tomorrow, which was a good movie, but I don't know. Like I would want like because here's the thing: we've been getting the same Superman villain over and over and over again in every single one. I'd like a Superman specific character to be the villain. Like, bro, give me like Mixie. I want to see Mixie. I want to see Brainiac. I want to see all these weirder characters that we haven't gotten because they've been like afraid to use anybody outside of Lex Luthor and General Zod for his movies. Show that he does have a great rogue gallery. I mean, it's not Batman, it's not the Flash, but he still has a lot of really good characters, and I think that showcase that. I wouldn't hate Lobo, but like Lobo is like kind of now seen as more anti-hero than villain, so I would like to have him stick with like his own movie rather than have him fight Superman, because it's like it feels reminiscent of like Black Adam fighting Superman.
I was gonna go there because I'm like, do you think Lobo versus Superman will change the hierarchy of power in the DCU? Like,
yeah, it's like that's what it feels like. It's like, are you not aware that he's a Captain Marvel villain, bro? Like, no, I want to fight Superman because fuck you. And it's like, all right, then you're not a fan of Black Adam because you don't understand the fucking character. But yeah, I want save him for his own stuff and then have Superman have his own rogues to actually fight against.
That's fair. I hear you. Well,
fucking composite Superman. Give me composite Superman. Fuck it.
We're getting Superman soon, and then maybe we'll see the two characters cross paths in Supergirl next year, because we know that Lobo is going to be in Supergirl, and then Jason Momoa is the caliber of actor you don't just bring in to play a one-off cameo. So let us know in the comments down below. Where do you want to see Lobo next after Supergirl? In his own solo movie? Do you want him to cross paths with Superman, another character? Would you like to kind of have him just, show up in other projects for a while before you give him his own movie? Or do you think this is sort of like a backdoor pilot maybe, and then they're just going to be like, oh, this was great, people loved him, give him his own movie. It's just a matter of time. So let us know in the comments what you think about that. In the meantime, John, we now have an absolute Bane. So speaking of the absolute universe, in the latest image from the absolute Batman comics, we finally have our first look at Bane, the absolute Bane, and he's bigger than Batman. I mean, this Batman is already pretty big. What are your thoughts on this look? It still looks fairly comic accurate. It's just weird because his head looks tiny, but I mean, I don't know. Is that fair? Like, what are your thoughts?
He's got a rocking pair of tits, I can tell you that. This is what Alan Ritchson would look like if he played Batman. Like, not gonna lie, this is just what it would just be this. And his fucking head, like, I understand like comic book art, sometimes it looks over exaggerated. I never liked the super duper like weird over exaggerated art where they look like tumors. Like I like, for instance, I don't like Frank Quitely's art. I could never get into it, and I really don't like this art either. Nothing on the guy, it's just my personal taste. I like it's just like looking at Batman. He just looks so fucking big, and it looks weird and gross to me. It just I don't care for it. But like, if people like it, then cool. That's awesome.
All right. Well, I mean, I'm interested. I mean, guys, let us know in the comments what you think about it. Jalen is in the chat now. Hello, Jalen. He's saying, what is that? 8'7"? Yeah. I mean, he looks big. TC24 Oompa Loompa off them. Bro.
Enterprising did Rob draw this? That's what it looks like.
Ron is like, time to break you. Yeah, it looks. I mean, look, it looks very absolute, if not anything else, right? Like it fits right in with what they're going for with the overall, I don't know, like motif for this whole thing. So I'm interested in seeing if any of these absolute characters make it into the live action version of whatever, whether it's a standalone or otherwise. It would be fun to see. I mean, the last time you saw Bane, it was probably the greatest iteration of the character, but like you said, he wasn't quite comic book accurate, but I still love Tom Hardy's Bane.
Oh, you think darkness is your ally? You merely adopted the dark.
You just can't beat that.
Molded by it.
Okay, I'm just narrating it while I play the clip. But yeah, I wonder if Absolute Bane will ever make it to the live action part of the universe. Absolute steroids, says yes, that's definitely true. That's probably what went into that particular Bane. That's probably the green juice right there. Ron is excited for Hush Part 2. That is already selling like bonkers. Hush Part 2 is going to be big. I wouldn't mind seeing Tom Hardy come back to DC. Probably not as Bane at this point, but he could play something else. And the best Oscar for the best comment goes to Enterprising for, what did the Enterprising say? Absolute steroids. Yes, that is a good comment. Interesting stuff. But hey, let's talk about lanterns the rest of the way. We got to talk about a bunch of lantern stuff. So the first thing is Ulrich Thompson, who is gonna be our Sinestro, John. He's out in LA. He's filming lanterns, and we recently saw a photo of him on Instagram, and it looks like he's got his Sinestro mustache on. John, what are your thoughts on the look that he's sporting these days? It's kind of hard to see because it's like gray, but like it's there. It's there. I tell you, I swear it's there.
I don't know. I can't see it, but I'll trust you on that.
It's right there. It's there. It's
enhance.
Right there. Enhance.
I mean, I like it. I dig it. I have people like, too much John, get away from the camera. I get, that's like the fucking entire chat right now. But yeah, give me that Sinestro stash. I mean, Mark Strong had it. Give me more. Looks great. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, and you know, it leans into the whole idea. I mean, he's all gray, so maybe this is an older version of Lantern or Sinestro, who potentially had a rivalry with our Kyle Chandler version of Hal Jordan back in the day. So they're definitely going with that older look rather than, I mean, Mark Strong played a younger version of Sinestro more at the beginning of his journey. Then this guy seems like he's already been on whatever journey he was meant to be on. So yeah. I mean, Ron saying I can see him as Sinestro, imagine him purple skin, it works. I can imagine that too. I can Enterprising saying Sinestro is just mad because his hairline is receding. They don't have Rogaine in space. Enterprising is on fire with these comments. Yep. I don't think they have Rogaine in space. I'm glad that he's back on Earth for this one. Maybe he'll stop by, I don't know, CVS or something and grab himself some Rogaine on his way back out into space. You know, put some of that foam on his head. He needs a few more locks of hair. But okay. All right. Well, now that brings us to our main story for the day, John. So let's flip that graphic. It's time to talk about lanterns, and more importantly, it's time to talk about who's going to play Jon Stewart's daddy or daddies.
Who is your daddy and what does he do?
That is a very good question, Arnold. Well, I can tell you who's going to play Jon Stewart's daddy. Not one, but two actors, because apparently this whole show is Jon Stewart's origin story, and we're not only getting a young Papa Jon Stewart, but we're also going to get an older Papa Jon Stewart, and the young version is going to be played by J. Alphonse Nicholson. John, you sent me this last night, and it looks like he has joined
after you were conked out. Poor Dan.
I was. Yesterday was a rough night for me.
Not gonna lie, that has happened to me. Yeah. Like straight up, where I was like, I'm gonna like just lay in bed for a bit, and then I woke up the next morning and I'm like, fuck. Yeah. But it was like the best sleep I've ever had. So like, you know, I'm just glad you got sleep. That's all. Just don't make me worried like that again. Goddamn. But,
I am glad too. But what do you think about Alphonse Nicholson?
Like I'm just curious how fucking long. Like, damn, how much are we gonna get? Like, it's 8. It's only gonna be 8 episodes. Like, how much are they gonna spend?
They're giving this whole guy his entire family, so we're gonna get lots of Jon Stewart origin story.
Yeah, and it's even more ironic because they're black guys.
Who is your daddy and what does he do?
I'm sorry.
That was just racist. That was racist, John.
Hey, I wasn't the one being racist. It was the guy, the fucking spokesperson that dropped the N-word, all right? I understood that. I'm just saying. I'm just making the light of a terrible thing that happened, but, you know. I'm just saying.
Oh, my God.
Papa John's. We swear we're not racist. Just the spokesperson. Who's no longer the spokesperson.
Or the founder of Papa John's. Yeah, that's probably the pickup line that he for Mama Lantern. We already know. Was it Nicole Ari Parker playing Mama Lantern? Yeah, there we go. Well, hey, look, at least you made Wear the Cape.
I love
so...
Enterprising. Dude needs to fire his barber. That line that got botched. Damn. Poor guy.
Yikes.
Like, this poor guy's getting flamed for it. It's fine. He's fine. But he's playing, he's gonna be in like the biggest DC show of all time. So, like, you know what? He can when he gets his money, he can get his shit fixed.
You offended TC24, John.
I did. I know. Why?
We're
I'm
sorry,
just one,
TC24. John's opinions do not reflect the opinions of the channel and Osakuri's and DCU Daily.
I never said
his
anything.
Opinions are his own.
I'm just making fun of the fact that the fucking spokesperson's an asshole. That's all I was making fun of, and I was like, "Oh, that's ironic." Damn, fucking out of context, guys.
I mean,
just taking...
but all right. Well, speaking of,
who is your daddy, and what does he do?
Let's talk about what J. Alphonse Nicholson has done. He's mostly been a TV actor, I suppose. He was on P-Valley on Stars. That seems to be the thing that he's most well known for. He's going to be playing a younger version of Jon Stewart's father, so which tracks. And I guess, like, if you look at Aaron Pierre, you look at him, like, okay, I can see it.
Yeah, I can kind of see it. Yeah,
I can kind of see it. And Deadline reported this. He's set for recurring roles in the series. He joins Kyle Chandler and Aaron Pierre, of course, and series regular Kelly McDonald. The cast is filling out, John. So he's going to be playing, like I said, the younger version of John Sr. The cast also includes, as we talked about earlier, Erlich Thompson. We recently saw Jason Ritter join, and Puna Jagannathan also is in there. So he's, of course, not the only one, though, who's going to be playing John Sr. He's going to be playing John Sr. Jr., but John Sr. is going to be, aka
I feel like I'm in Kim Possible again. Senior.
Yeah, the older version of John's father is going to be played, or maybe the version that exists in the day iterate, like in the present day of the show.
Yeah, the present day
is going to be Sherman Augustus. So speaking of Sherman Augustus,
who is your daddy, and what does he do?
Well, I'll tell you, Sherman Augustus is best known for Stranger Things, and he's also going to be playing a recurring role. So I suppose
I don't remember him.
I feel like I remember him, but it wasn't a big role. Maybe he was one of the guys in prison in the last season. I don't know. I'm not like in Russia. Like, you remember, like I don't know. That's where my mind. Somebody let us know. Maybe I'm completely off the mark, but yeah, I mean, it looks like he's playing John Sr., who is Jon Stewart's father, of course, but also the human embodiment.
Apparently, he's a martial artist too.
Stubborn. Now, in his own reality, he tends to fixate on the past and what could have been. So he's going to be playing a stubborn man full of regrets, it looks like, and he's got a decent resume on him. I mean, what do you think about Sherman Augustus, John?
I don't really know him that much. I mean, he played Lieutenant Colonel Jack Sullivan in season 4 of Stranger Things.
He was in that AMC show Into the Badlands, as you can see on camera. That show looked fantastic. That's like just a wacky.
Well, apparently he is a martial artist. He has like a 2nd degree black belt in like Taekwondo. So like, cool, pretty badass. But like, I'm sure he'll do a good job. I don't really know much about him, but like from his body of work, it sounds cool and fucking looks cool. Goddamn, fucking badass there.
Enterprising saying no worries, Shaq's the papa now and loves Superman, so it's cool. That is true. Shaq did do that whole thing where they cross-promoted Superman at the NBA All-Star game. And then Antonio's in the chat. Hello, Antonio. He's saying that's why I remember him from Into the Badlands. Yes, he was in that show. He was pretty good in that show. That show was great. And he played a pretty good part in there. He's the general hunting L in season 3. TC24 saying we got young John, old John, and the racist.
I make fun of racists. That's the fucking joke I was making. God damn.
Oh man, okay.
I was making fun of the fucking spokesperson for being a prick. But nope, everyone's just going with the fucking low hanging fruit of like not understanding the fucking joke. Tisk tisk, people, come on. But hey, in this day and age, racist means nothing. So I'll probably just get canceled and then I'll come back 2 days later. It's fine. It's fine. I'm used to it. I'm
it's a
used
good
to
thing.
being vilified.
Well,
It's
you know
okay.
what? It's a good thing it's Friday, because then you can just sit out Saturday, Sunday. We'll let things calm down, and then we'll be back on Monday. This is the perfect time.
Maybe in a different location if my
in a
fucking
different location. Yeah,
if I
probably.
can get my laptop fixed again.
Yeah. But I like what Ron is saying. This Green Lantern show is now really going heavy on the sexy man vibe. Well, Ron, we appreciate that you like, the James Gunn's taste in sexy man, I suppose, or I guess Tom King and co.'s taste, because yeah, I'm totally I see what you're putting down, Ron. Antonia, by the way, yeah, I agree with you. I loved Into the Badlands. I was sad when they canceled it. Probably because it wasn't getting enough viewers. I mean, nobody watches AMC these days. Everybody forgot that The Walking Dead even exists still. But yeah, both of these actors not terribly well known. So
Well, I mean, that
don't know
makes
how big of a
sense. I mean,
role
they're
they'll
playing
have to
small
play.
roles, and
Yeah,
they're not. They're obviously not going to go. Oh yeah, Denzel Washington is playing his dad. It's like obviously they're not going to do that. So, you know, um, so yeah, it makes sense to get smaller actors, but it's like as long as they're talented, who gives a fuck how small they are? Like that's just like if you're getting somebody talented, then cool. I don't know like what they're gonna really bring to the table in terms of, like it seems like we're getting generational shit if we're getting a young John Stewart
I'm like
senior.
we're getting a lot of backstory to this Jon Stewart character. Like we
Yeah.
haven't heard anything about Kyle Chandler, like Hal Jordan's mom or dad or brother or sister,
The
or
most we're
son
getting
or
is like
daughter.
Kelly
So
McDonald is playing an old flame of his. That's the most we're kind of getting. So it goes to show that yeah, this is going to be Jon Stewart's show. He's going to be the main Green Lantern, which is good because he's the more popular one. It's going to be the next Luke Cage. It's going to be black exploitation. I'm all for that. Luke Cage was a baller show, so like fuck it, I'll
Yes, it
take more of
was.
that. And plus,
They might be
Disney's
coming
already
back next season
and
with
you
the
know what?
Defenders.
Disney's already fucking up Daredevil. They're probably gonna fuck up Luke Cage too. So this is the best we're gonna get in terms of superhero neo blaxploitation. Hell yeah, let's go. Like I'm here for it. But yeah, it's just like I don't know how they're gonna make this work, but like zaddies,
And what does he do?
dilfs, we're getting a lot of that shit.
Yeah,
We're getting a
too
lot
many
of that
daddies
shit.
on the show.
Who is your
Hell
daddy,
yeah.
and what does he do?
Yep. I am all for it. I like it. It's just this is fun. It's surprising to me that we're getting casting news again so deep into them already filming the show, but I suppose these deals could have been signed a while ago and we're only hearing about them now. Ron is saying, John, Daredevil is not to be fucked over. The season so far is good. I agree with you,
know.
Ron.
I'm just getting a rise.
John needs to
out
get
of
his
it.
butt out of his chair and go turn the TV on and watch the show. Because, dude, if you watch through all the episodes that are out now, the first 4, this upcoming week, we're getting 2 episodes. It's the double episode week, episode 5 and 6. So, yeah. Maybe we'll get some kind of surprise. Like maybe somebody dies. Maybe it's kind of 2-parter for some reason. So, yeah. And then they're already filming season 2. And there's rumors that the Defenders will reunite or a version of that for season 2 of Daredevil. So that'll be interesting. It looks like Karen Page is back for that season.
Yeah, looking like Mary Jane.
God. Yeah. Well, this looks fun. I like both of these actors. I think they'll both hopefully leave their mark on the show. Into the Badlands was a great show. I really haven't seen Alphonse Nicholson in much, but again, he fits the description, right? Like a younger version of Papa Stewart is gonna look similar to Aaron Pierre playing Jon Stewart. So that to me lines up. And yeah, you know what? They probably want to give us enough of a look at the past life and the background of Jon Stewart that they're giving him not just his mom, but also his dad, and also a younger version of his daddy.
Who is your daddy, and what does he do?
And I'm all for it. We'll just have to wait and see how much of a role both these actors have to play in the show. But I think that pretty much does it for the day, because that's it. That's all the DC news we had. Unless, John, did you have any comments you wanted to go over? Or did you go over those yesterday?
I think I went over them yesterday. I did, yes.
By the way, I have episode 274 comments. I will send them to you. We'll probably bring them in on Monday. But you guys are talking about, like, you know, in the chat, TC24 thinks Daredevil is 7 out of 10. Ron thinks Daredevil is pretty well. Ron definitely agrees that Daredevil.
How many did we get? Any did we actually like get comments like before the video got taken down?
Yes,
or are you talking about?
We did.
Okay.
I because I get an email every time the comments come in, so I have them saved. I'll bring those over. We'll save that for Monday. But
yeah,
it's gonna take too
we're
long
never
to get
gonna
through them now.
we're never gonna see 274 ever again.
Well, we will, because I'm gonna put it up again, but except I'll blur out the footage, because Warner Brothers was really pissed at us because we showed it. I mean, everywhere that it's actually up is now not up anymore. But
I recorded it. I do have the
Dude,
footage.
I sent you the footage. You have it. I sent it to you on
You
Slack.
sent it to me, and I recorded it myself.
We
just
have
in
it.
case.
We have it
No,
in
we have the
1920 by
footage.
fucking 1080p, Warner Brothers.
No.
It exists.
Fuck you, Warner Brothers. We still have it. If you bust my door down, well, I live in America. I got my Second Amendment rights, so eat a dick.
Exactly.
Who is your daddy, and what does he do?
I don't. Okay. Are you calling me senpai, or are you calling Jon Stewart senpai? Because I'm not senpai. Jon Stewart is senpai.
I don't know.
That's definitely.
I don't know. Well, hey, I think that wraps it up for the day and the week. It's been a fantastic week here at DCU Daily, and also Curious and all. We did an MCU Weekly today. Hopefully we'll have Liz back on the show next week. Hopefully she's feeling better. But in the meantime, thank you guys for joining us. We're gonna John Senpai, come on. Jalen is saying both. But we'll be back on Monday as always. If you guys are new, then just know that we're here 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. So if you haven't subscribed yet, hit subscribe so that way you know when we have a new video going up. If you hit the notification bell, you'll know when we go live with the show. And then join us in the live chat, as so many of you guys are. John will give you that beard stroking just as a bonus.
Double stroking action.
Why so serious?
With that in mind, hit the like button on the way out if you haven't already. And hit the notification bell, and so that way you know when we are back on Monday. We'll be back with Oh So Curious. We'll review the movies, Alto Knight, Snow White. We'll talk about the latest from the world of DC. Hopefully we'll get a trailer for Superman sooner than later. I bet you it's coming in the next 7 to 10 days. So hopefully
Do you think so?
We'll get some market. I think
my theory is that it's either gonna be released at like CinemaCon is gonna get something, but they're gonna get something more, and then we're just gonna get that trailer, or we're gonna get something on the 18th. Like that's my.
I feel like we're getting something around CinemaCon. I'm pretty sure that's probably what's gonna be. But we'll talk about that more on Monday. Until then, guys, have a great weekend ahead, and come back to us on Monday. We'll be back here, and if something
Enjoy
happens
any
over the
new
weekend,
movies coming out. Not Snow White. Fuck Snow White.
Well, if you want to go see it, go see it. Like, we're not gonna tell you not to.
Watch
To each their own.
watch the day the Earth blew up instead. It's better, fun for the whole family.
Or you can go watch Ash. We reviewed that. If you popped in late to the show, then be kind and rewind. And then, we'll be back to review all of those movies on Monday and beyond. And of course, all the news from the world of DC. And I'm sure we'll probably get into some fan castings, more Lantern, Superman, Supergirl, and beyond, Clayface, Peacemaker, whichever topics we get into, all the news, we'll bring it to you. Until next time, guys, have a great weekend. And we'll see you on the next episode of DCU Daily.
Who is your daddy, and what does he do?